Baseball Hell is a production of Monkey Butt Enterprises. No animals were harmed in the making of this podcast. Well, hello again, everybody. This is Tommy the K. It's July 16th, and you're in Baseball Hell. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Ward Davis the Seventh. How you doing, Davis?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing well, Tommy. How's things with you?
Doing good. It's been a couple weeks since we did our last regular show. I did a little traveling out to the Northeast. I was in the Buffalo area, Niagara Falls area, with wife, and it was our 40th high school reunion.
How is that going
Enjoyed
to?
that.
I kind of wondering how would that be going to somebody else's reunion?
It was not too bad. Now, of course, my lovely wife and I have been married for quite some time, over 30 years. So I had met a handful of these folks, either either in previous visits or going to the earlier reunions. So I knew a handful of these folks, very nice people from the Grand Island High School class of 1984.
Oh,
So yeah, I got to go out to that reunion. We had a good time there. It wasn't so fun getting back. American Airlines really pulled a number on everybody. I think they must have overbooked pretty much every flight that they had across the country over the 4th of July weekend, and it was a hopeless case trying to get back. They were, I think the flight that we were originally on, we were supposed to go back on Sunday evening. I think that flight finally took off on Tuesday morning.
mm.
So we had we ended up on late Sunday night canceling American, throwing a bunch of money onto the fire to get tickets from Delta on less than 1 day's notice. So
Right.
yeah, kind of got burned a little bit on the way back. Thank you very much, American Airlines.
Did you get to see Niagara Falls at all?
Yeah, we did actually go to the falls. I had been there before. I went on the Canadian side the first time. This must have been at least 10 years ago. Actually, it was 20 years ago. And they always say go to the Canadian side because it's a much better view. And this is true when you want to see the entire, landscape and you want to see the whole falls. You will get a better view of it from the Canadian side. However, this time I did go on the New York side, and I was glad I did because what you get on the American side is you get to be incredibly close to the river itself. And there's several branches of the river that are turning into falls at Niagara. And what you get to see on the American side is just the absolute incredible amount of water that's moving and the incredible force that's going on there and the violence of that water. It's pretty amazing. So you really can't go wrong going to either side. It was really nice. Glad I went back there.
Well, good. That sounds that does sound nice. And then you came back and you said, "Wow, we have a lot of baseball to cover."
Got a lot of baseball to cover, and so we got a great show for you today. One of the things I want to highlight at this point is we do have a excellent guest at the halftime of the show. It's someone
Another
who
one.
actually another
Yeah,
one.
we've had
Yes,
some great guests on. I have to say.
yeah, I we've been blessed, and I don't think this one's going to be any different. This is actually an old coach of mine. His name's Hal Smith. He was a ball player, played some college ball, and thankfully took the time out of his life to coach me for a couple years when I was in Little League back in 1975 and 1976. This guy was also an active participant in the Big Brother program, took care of uh, two young men and supplied a outstanding role model for them, and actually was the best man at both of their weddings when they grew up.
Wow.
Um, Also had a great professional career outside of baseball. It took him all over the globe, and he was a staff member for U.S. Senator Charles Percy, who served 3 terms. So we look forward to talking to Hal.
On a side note, Tommy, that he was your coach. He was not my coach, but you joined the team I was on the next year.
Mm-hmm.
My
Mm-hmm.
coach, uh, the year before, the year that you had our guest, uh, um, he seems to be hanging around here a lot. I've seen him around, and I didn't recognize him at first, but he's been around. I don't know. What I think we might have to talk to him too. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like Kind of like the way Sid Barrett used to hang around the studio after he was in Pink Floyd, and they'd look up, and there he was.
Yeah, just kind of he wasn't in the band anymore, and all of a sudden they were playing Dark Side of the Moon, and he's like, where do you want me to go?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here to do my bit.
We don't need you today. And actually, you sound pretty happy about your coach. My coach,
Yes.
he wasn't as great, but we'll see what happens about that down the line here.
Okay. So here we are. We've got a lot of baseball to cover because we didn't cover the last 2 weeks. We're going to move very swiftly through that material, and as we're recording, it's All Star Week, so we we're got a little time off from the regularly scheduled games, but just wanted to talk just for a moment about the All Star Game itself. To me, it's something that have very fond memories of when I was a child in the 70s and even into the 80s. It seemed like it really was a spectacle and something that I always really looked forward to watching. The one thing I remember, Davis, was back in the 70s though. Uh, it seemed like it was the starting lineup was 8 out of the 9 guys were either Cincinnati Reds or Los Angeles Dodgers on the National League team, right? They would stuff the ballot box, and the whole infield would be the big red machine uh, back in those days, and it was very frustrating. But then they'd also pick, a lot of subs, so there'd be Cardinals and Cubs on the team, and also great players from all the other National League and American League teams. But it seemed like the game, I don't know, it seemed like it was more fun to watch back then, and then as the years have gone by, I think I was texting with you earlier, but I don't know that there's been a good game in a couple of decades.
Yeah, I don't know. And the American League is dominated, and nothing that's really stood out. Not the excitement of it all. I think the players are taking it seriously, but not like it was when it was Pete Rose, for instance. When he barrels
Yeah,
into Ray Fosse at home plate, when I believe Jim Hickman got the hit for an old Cub, who was also an old Cardinal, but Jim Hickman got the hit, and then here comes Pete Rose around third base and an exhibition game, and barrels into Ray Fosse and pretty much ruins his career, an All Star.
in an exhibition
Yeah,
game.
well, that was an All Star game, but so should we do All Star games anymore, or what should we do about this? I mean, it seems like you got a lot of stars they don't want to pitch or play. You're trying to keep your young pitchers without getting heavy innings, uh,
Yes.
and and now they're pitching. They're not getting the days off. They got to travel, and it seems to be a little detrimental to your stars. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, and I think these guys, I sympathize because they don't get many days off, right? And as you can, yes, they're very highly paid and they're athletes and they're
Right.
in great shape, but they're out there busting themselves up night after night after night,
Every
and
day,
they
yeah.
might go, yeah, they might go 2 weeks without a day off. And when they find, and they don't get any vacation, right? And there's no weekend off. So if you think about it, relate it to your everyday job, do you want to work an entire summer or and not have any vacation? And this is the one break that they do get. So I think it can be a little tough on the players to go out there, especially the pitchers. And in fact, the Cardinals, you know, Dave, I was going to tell you, I was looking at the notes. 12 teams only had one representative on the All Star team this year. And of course, you have to have one, so it's mandated. A lot of those teams, including the Cardinals, would have had no one were it not for this rule. Because Helsley did not get voted in, and well, pitchers don't get voted in. He did not get selected, and they had to put him um, on the team. Now I think for the Cubs, Imanaga was an obvious choice, and he absolutely had to be on that team. I think Helsley absolutely deserved to be on that team, named on
Yes.
that team with 32 saves before the All Star break. And I'm not going to argue against any other Cardinals being on there. I don't know that they had anyone else that really stood out enough to be an All Star against the rest of that roster. The Cardinals have
Maybe they're short. Maybe they're short stuff. They're maybe Win.
Mason
Yeah.
Wynn. I think if Wynn wasn't a rookie, if he was a proven player who had a couple years of those kind of stats behind him, they might have had him on the roster. But yeah, I think the fact that he was a rookie was, yes, yeah, well, he'll get
I
his
would think he
chance.
would have been the second choice. But yeah, I'd say that I don't know if it's such a big deal anymore. You know, just name an all-star team and then name the second team all-star. That way, the players
Yeah,
get their all-star bonus. Give everybody 3 days off. Give everybody a break, and then start back
yeah.
up.
Give them the notoriety and the recognition, and give them the time off to rest their bones, especially the
But
pitchers.
you get them all together and say, "Look, you are the ones who are the people who are in the All Stars. We're going to get the only thing we ask of you: get all together. We're going to take a picture of all of you, and then say your goodbyes. And do
Yeah.
exhibition stuff like they do. For one day, like the home run contest and the fielding contest. They have other stuff like that, and then just call it a day. Send everybody home for 3 days, and then start up on Friday. But anyway,
Well, I was kind of glad when they said Helsley's not going to pitch
yeah.
because, and he actually, so actually, technically, the Cardinals have no one on the squad. He's not going to participate in the game no matter what. But I think he needs the break because he's had, I think, over 40 appearances already, or he's right around 40 appearances.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of stress on him. So I was kind of glad that they did. Now, in fact, I mentioned there was only 12 teams that only had one. Now, I thought earlier in the week, I was like, well, the Cardinals are going to break away from that pack because there were several players who requested to have Miles Michaelis pitch to them in the home run derby.
Yeah, well, we'll get to him in the
So
home run derby later on. He was already in the home run derby, but let's start talking baseball.
let's talk baseball. So I was looking at what the Cardinals did. So we're going all the way back to July
Yeah,
1st. Um, was the start of the baseball week, the first baseball week that we're going to cover. Now, both teams were off. That was a Monday, so Cards enter into the action at 43 and 40. Got a three-game set with the Pirates in Pittsburgh. First game, Kyle Gibson versus Mitch Keller. The Cardinals win this one, 7-4. They got up early, 2-0 after 3 innings, up 6-0 after the four. So they were in pretty good shape here. Kyle Gibson got into a little trouble in the bottom of the fifth, gave up 4 runs, but the Cardinals easily held on and won this game, 7-4. Gibson got his sixth win. He's 6-3. The second game, this was a tough contest. This actually went into extra innings. This was Mild Michaelis versus Jared Jones in the pitching contest. Cards got down 3-1. Contreras hit a 2-run homer late in the game to tie it. So it was 3-3 after eighth. Went into extra innings. Top of the 10th, Cardinals scored one. Pirates picked up two in the bottom, and they dropped this game 5-4. And they're down to 44-41. The third game, the Cardinals come back, and another extra inning affair. Both starters went 7 innings and only gave up 1 run. It was Andre Palante and Martin Perez. Cardinals scored 2 runs in the top of the 10th. Pirates only picked up one. This was a low-scoring affair. The Cardinals win this one 3-2. John King got the win. He's 3-1. He pitched 2 shutout innings to close it out in the ninth and the 10th. So Cardinals took 2 out of 3 in Pittsburgh. Pretty good series and good start to the baseball action for them. Then they took a trip out down to Washington to play the Nationals. This was a 4-game series. Sonny Gray versus Pat Corbin in the first game. The Cardinals win this one 7-6. They had another home run from Contreras in the ninth inning, supplying some heroics to tie it up. Each team scored in the 10th. The Cardinals got one in the 11th, and Helsley came in, pitched the bottom of the 11th. And actually, he pitched the 10th and the 11th. He got the victory in this one. He's 3-3, and the Cards are suddenly 5 games over 500. Who would have thunk it
yeah,
a couple of months ago? And now, game two, Lance Lynn started, and he pretty much shit the bed. He lasted 2 2/3 innings, gave up 3 homers, Davis, in 2 2/3. Cardinals are down 9-0 after 2 innings. Game over, man, as they say. So they dropped this one. Game three, the Cardinals come back, bounce right back. Kyle Gibson pitches well here. Cards score a run at the top of the fourth. They pick up three more in the fifth. They're up 6-2. Contreras with another home run, a two-run homer, his ninth of the year in the top of the seventh, put the Cardinals up 8-3. They go on and cruise to victory on this one. They're 47-42, and they're in second place. Now, oddly, there was a fourth game to this series on Monday, and this one the Cardinals breezed through pretty well. Michaelis came back, pitched a good game, pitched six and a third innings of shutout ball. Nice job, Miles. Goldschmidt hit his 12th home run. Burleson hit his 14th home run. Cardinals win this one 6-0, and they're 6 games over 500, 48-42 after that week of baseball. So what happened with the Cubbies?
Well, on the 1st of July, Tommy, the Cubs were off, so they had a day off, and it was
Right.
much needed. But on Tuesday, July 2nd, the Cubs' offensive woes continue. They're down 6-1 in the ninth, and of course, as usual, they score three late runs, but too late.
Yep.
You know,
Yes.
Wisniewski gives up two home runs, both to Justin Turner, and it's over. Cubs down. They lose 6-4. Wisniewski is
Okay.
having some trouble keeping that ball in the ballpark. They bounce back the next day, uh, July 4th. By the way, they're playing the Phillies. I don't know if I mentioned that, but
You did not.
Imanaga pitches the next day on Wednesday, and he keeps the team in the game again. He pitches 6 innings, and he didn't seem to. He seemed to struggle a little bit. He gives up a couple of home runs. He leaves the game. It's tied 3-3, but he strikes out 8, gives up a walk, and he keeps the team in the game, and that's the big thing. You know, without him, they'd have an absolutely horrible record because they've won most of the games he started and have lost most of the other games. But Morel gives up an error.
He's still struggling
They're
defensively.
putting Mastroboni in a little bit more, and Mastroboni's bat. So do you keep Morel's bat in and the bad third base play, or do you keep Mastroboni in and the no bat? You know, right now the
Yeah.
Cubs are going for the defense, but at the time they had him in, and the Cubs can't come back and they lose 5-3, so they start the week with two losses. But Thursday the Cubs were down 2-0 again. Looked like the Phillies were going to sweep, but they break loose. They score five, I think, in the fourth inning, and then three more in the fifth. Let's call this the Hap game, Tommy. It was,
Oh, another Hap game.
yeah, and he's been carrying the team.
He usually saves those for the Cardinals.
Yeah, but he was getting ready for the Cardinals coming up. But he 4 for 4, two homers, a single and a double, 11 total bases, 6 RBIs. 10 of those 7 innings. He's been really good. And Cubs win 10-2, and they avoid the sweep.
Yeah, Hap's really woken up. He got off to a tough start this
He
season,
really
but
did.
he's back. He's back to where you expect him.
But he's been leading really with Bellinger out. Suzuki's been a little bit more on than off, and then Bush is making a big comeback after a good start and then a poor middle. But the three of those guys, they're keeping the team going there. So they're 1-2, and then here come the California Angels to town, the LA Angels, and
Not a good
not a
team.
very good team. And the first game on Friday, all Justin Steele, complete game win. I think it was his first complete game in his career. 9 innings pitched, 1 run, 2 hits, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. And his ERA drops to 2.95. He's been pitching well. That was actually his first win of the season, his first
Wow.
victory. And then Suzuki drops a ball in the right field. This is seemingly a big concern.
Not another one of these off his glove,
It
was it?
was, and
Oh, no.
but he gets a 2 run homer, which he did before. You remember last time he gave up a big with the
Yes.
bases loaded, gave up 3 runs,
Yes.
and it hit something like a grand slam or a 3 run homer to tie the game or something crazy.
You're right.
Well, he
Yes.
hits a 2 run homer and makes up for it, and the Cubs win game one of the series.
But Dave, that's the third incident in less than a year that where Suzuki has dropped routine fly
A
balls.
routine fly ball.
He cost them the wild card spot with that drop at the end of last
Yeah,
season,
that was really
right?
rough.
He dropped the ball. And then, yeah, and then as you mentioned, he had that drop with the bases loaded, and now he did it again. I wonder, it's just a lack of concentration or what's going
I
on
don't
there.
know. I don't know what's going on with him. He came over with the reputation of a good fielder, and he has a good arm, and he cuts the balls off well and everything. But every once in a while, a pop fly, I
A
don't know what
lapse.
happens. I don't know how you drop those balls. You just never see it, especially in this day and age. But the next day, Saturday, July 6th, the Cubs, have a little momentum. They won the third game of the series against Philly, and here are the Angels. They won the first game of the series, but they're not consistent. Kyle Hendricks gives up some hits early, 4 hits, 2 walks, and 2 innings. 2 earned runs is the ERA, 7.53. The Brewer comes in. He doesn't do well. He comes in to the dugout and just punches the wall. And how many times have you seen this in baseball? Your guy pitcher punches the wall, breaks his hand. Next thing you know, he's on the 60-day disabled list.
So this was Brewer. Brewer did
Colton
this.
Brewer. Not that it's a big loss, Colton Brewer was picked up, and but you're trying to get some veterans in the bullpen and get something established there, and he was doing
Well, yeah, and that's been the biggest problem spot for the Cubs. That
right.
bullpen, and here's a guy. At least he was a serviceable arm, and he just took himself out for basically the rest of the
Cubs didn't
season.
do anything. They get 4 hits. They lose 7-0, and Sunday they have a chance to win the series, and they do. Wisniewski, who'd been struggling, giving up those home runs that I spoke about, he pitches a one-hitter through 6 1/3 innings, 86
All
pitches.
right.
Porter Hodge looks good, no walks, and that's been Hodge's problem. He pitches a third and a two scoreless. Little and Neris comes in. Actually, Neris came in, and there was a Little put 3 guys on, so they started to make a comeback. But the Cubs end up with a shutout, and Bush hits another home run, and Neris wins it because 3 guys were on in a 5-0 game. When he came in, he gets a save.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, so the Cubs win that series, and I think maybe the third series they've won in about 2 months, and that includes the White Sox and one over the Giants. But so the Cubs finished that week 3-3.
Okay. So this takes us into halftime, and we're gonna bring our guests into the studio now, and so we want to welcome Hal Smith to Baseball Hell. Besides my family, he's really one of the most important and influential people that I've met in my life. And he happened to be my Little League baseball coach back in the day, mid 70s, when I was in sixth and seventh grade playing for McDonald's.
McDonald's. We won that thing, didn't we? We won that. We at least one of those
It's,
2 years.
it's, well, we'll get to that in a second.
Welcome, Hal. Welcome, Hal. Nice to have you here in the studio, and
Thank you.
I'd be very interested to hear about how your coaching skills and how Tommy himself fared on that team.
How I disappointed you so many times,
Not
Hal.
true. Not true. He was a very once we got him bailed out of jail. He was good. Everything was fine.
Right.
No, no, no.
I was kind of in jail one time, Hal. I remember that my report card had come in just before the second
I
year,
know.
and my dad was not going to let me
I
play.
know.
You had to give him a
He
call.
talked to me about
I had to leave the room for you guys to have a discussion, but whatever you
it. Yeah,
said softened him up just enough to get me on the team
Now
that
that's
year.
a good coach right there. That's a good coach. That's a coach that cares right
I cared. I really cared.
Yes.
I was coaching my own little brother in the Big Brother program, both of them actually on that team, and I wanted to
Hmm.
coach. I was only about 25 years old myself, and I played baseball forever. I love baseball, and I had a tremendous coach as a young person at 10, 11, and 12. Won a national championship for the Corey League when I was 12 years
Hmm.
old, and that coach was a tremendous inspiration to me. And I loved what he did. It was all positive. It was all smiling. It was all hustle. It was all outplay the other teams, all that stuff. And I couldn't wait to do that myself. So Tom was an easy guy to coach. His mom and dad were all in. They were terrific people, and he could sulk a little bit. He didn't, he'd pitch. He was good. He had a left-handed pitcher, first baseman. He could throw hard. He at times would miss the strike zone a little bit, but he he was a good hitter.
there. Well,
Yeah, about a dozen walks a game. That was. Hey, but only thing I counted, Hal, was strikeouts. So if I struck out 13 and walked
That's
12, that was a
that's a
good
good
day.
game. That's right. That's right. So,
His K walk ratio was a little not that good.
My walks, hits per innings pitch. There wasn't many hits per innings pitch, but there was a lot of walks.
Right.
you'd never know Tom today compared to how he looked then. He was a little chunky. He looked like I would always say he said I said you're lazy. I never used that term, but I can remember I said you need to hustle. Come on, let's hustle. You got to really let's try to get you moving.
Right.
So
No, there was one story, Davis, where we were at practice, and this is one of the things, and I say this, how you were one of the people that had the most positive influence on my life, even during that short period there. And sometimes you had to give me a little kick in the butt,
that's about
And I think I was standing there on first base, and it was just a warm day, and we're doing batting practice, and I'm just like, well, I'm not batting and I'm not pitching, so what do I care, right? Because it was all about me. And somebody hit a little pop up foul ball or something, and I just didn't. I gave it like a 10% try, And how you stopped practice, how you had to come over to me and you took me over to the side, Tommy. You're a good kid, and I really like you, and you're a good ball player, but you're lazy.
he must have taken it to the limit.
And I was like, and so here I am shrinking. This guy who played college baseball and I admire so much, and he had to tell me I was lazy. But then I was like, you know what? I think he might have been right.
I worked hard to get the most out of
Of course, he was.
him, and he was a good boy and a great guy to coach. So and he's grown up to be a man that I now admire. So we're even with each other in that sense. So
Oh, that's
great,
great.
nice family stuff. So
Well, Davis and I, Hal, Davis and I played together on a Corey League team the next year. So after the second year, when I was with
That's
you in
right.
McDonald's, I left and we played. And it was funny. We were sponsored by actually a tobacco smoke shop. It
That's
was
right.
called, they had Chico's bail bonds
oh
in
yeah,
Bad News Bears, but we were sponsored by Epicure's Choice. It was a smoking
oh
shop.
that's
We
Yeah.
funny.
were Epicure's choice. Yeah.
I
And we
love
didn't think anything of it. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what an epicure was. That
I
was
never could
no.
figure out what it was either till I walked past it. It was in the mall one day, and I went, "Oh, yeah, there's Epicure's Choice." And it's like you walk in, you can't be in here. You got to be 18. It's a smoke shop. Get the
yeah.
hell out.
I think they had one on like Capitol Avenue. I walked by it one time by the train station. I'm like, what the?
That's funny. Oh my god.
There's cigarettes in here.
Yeah.
Now we'll find out later. But I had a team the year before we joined Epicure's Choice. I had a team that I was on, but cigarettes were a theme there. But that's something for later on. But
That's funny.
there was a so that was kind of weird. But yeah, we were a Corey League team, and we did pretty well. Tom was he really he was one of our best pitchers, and we gathered stars from the different schools, and our team was pretty good before, but it really became a really good team. But I think we needed somebody like you, Hal, to kick some butt here. Although our coach, I have to say, our coach, he was a great guy, just a great guy.
What was his name?
His last name was Andrews, Jack Andrews, I believe. Yeah, just a great guy, and I thought, and he had the style that I liked. It was just let the kids play. You know,
He was like a Red Shandy's coach. He'd make the lineup and let you go play.
yeah,
Hey, just go play.
but he made sure everybody got in the game. He made sure everybody got in, and he made sure that all the kids were good. And when some other coaches on other teams, you could see that they were like yelling. But he never did that to us. He was kind, and he was a good guy, and he took the time. And his son was on the team. That's how I got on the team, and then Tom got on there. His son John was on the team, and and John was one of my best friends,
We went to grade
our
school
best
with John.
friends,
Yeah.
yeah. And he got us to get on that team, and it was a lot of fun because of and because we had a good coach.
Of course.
Different
Yeah.
coaches have different styles. Good coaches, and but the time taken
Yeah.
to do it, that's
Is
did you take that time?
Yes.
A lot of time out of your day, your
That-
schedule as an adult.
yes.
And as a kid, I don't know if you actually appreciate that as much.
No.
How great it is that that an adult would do that and then spend that time and and a lot of stuff that happens on the field. I mean, it would rain, and then they'd be out there raking the field, or you're making sure everything's good. I mean, it's just the appreciation level. I can see how Tom has that admiration for you. I have that same admiration for Mr. Andrews, Jack Andrews, who coached us at Epicure's Choice, and just because of what they gave to the kids, what they gave to the kids, and that really means a lot. So
Our,
thank you.
our coach, you're welcome. It was my pleasure. Actually, I think I'm certain I enjoyed it more than the kids did, even more. But my coach was had a 1955 Chevy that had a chewed up back seat, and that's where he kept all the baseball equipment. He'd show up, and we were responsible for unloading the stuff and getting it set up and ready to practice. We practiced 2 nights a week, and on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock, no matter what. Play 2 games a week, 3 practices a week, and 2 games a week at least. And he was friends with George Corey. We all played in the Corey League.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
from St. Louis. He's the one who founded that league in St. Louis. And when we would end up in the national finals every year, and we did 3 years in a row, 9, 10, or 10, 11, and 12, we would stay at the YMCA across the street from the old Sportsman's Park in St. Louis. And I've seen pictures recently where you can aerial view of the field, and behind it you can see the brick YMCA. We stayed in a dormitory style thing with cots to play in the national championship. And George Corey himself would come to our YMCA and autograph baseballs for us kids. And then he would go walk.
Wow,
He'd walk over to Sportsman's Park with us in the sixth or seventh inning, and probably a terrible game. And those years they weren't winning a World Series. I don't think they did in '64, but in '63 they didn't. He'd walk us over there, and they would let us in the gate for free in the back. We'd go through the turnstiles, and we'd sit way out, in left field or right field corner near the foul line. And we couldn't read the names on the back of the jerseys if they even had them on there. We could barely see the numbers, but it was amazing to be in the ballpark, and to feel that special. And the one championship we finished second, and then finally at 12 we finished third, and we won on a squeeze play home. So if you can believe it, in the bottom of the seventh, we squeezed a run home to win that national championship. The year before, I'll tell you what it's like to be a player who feels the misery of losing a game. The team that beat us in the national finals had the bases loaded. We were ahead 1-0, I think, maybe it was tied, and I was trained by my coach. I played second base, so we're playing in for the play at the plate, playing a double play or in the plate. Ground ball's hit to me. If it's hit to me at second base, if the runner has not gotten to me yet, I'm to tag the runner and say, I got him, so the umpire would know, and then throw to first base. That's exactly what I did. I tagged the runner. Ground ball came to me. I tagged the runner, said, I got him, threw to first base. He's out at first. I think the inning's over. And the umpire is standing at second base, looking at second base, not looking at me, calling the guy safe. And I said, I began to cry. I'm 10 years old, crying, saying, I got him. I said, replay would get that now. And then the next guy got a base hit, and they beat us 2-1, I think.
And that umpire's name was Don Dankinger.
So it was in the old days. That was at Forest Park, right across from where the Blues used to play in the big arena. What was it called? I forget what they called that. It was an old wooden arena.
Oh, the
Checkerdome,
Checkerdome.
yeah, it was across the road from there. I still see that same field; it's still there, and I never go by there.
wow.
I don't sense that feeling that of what it was like to. And the kid at second base after the next pitch looked at me and he said, "Don't feel bad, you got me." And I admired him for that always. The other team after the game came over to me and told me, it was a great game and don't feel bad.
That turned out to be the guy who got to first base safely on the Don Deckinger call. That was George Orta, who looked at you and said, "Don't feel badly."
You're going to feel even worse in 1985 when we get you again.
How that all comes to full circle. It's
Things
great.
like that
It's
happen.
unbelievable.
And I swear to God, we finished second both those years in a row. And I knew what it was like to spend all winter long thinking the last 2 games you played, you lost. We'd be 35-3 for the year. Two of those last
Hmm.
2 games were the
Hmm.
two we lost. And,
Yeah, you remember the losses, man. It is. You remember 'em. Well, you said earlier how you were like, "Hey, we won it that year, right?" And I was like, I this is something I'll never forget. We did not, and we lost the last game to Illini Sporting Goods, and I remember I pitched that
Yes.
game, if you want to call it pitching, and I just didn't have it, and I had beaten them twice
Yeah.
that year. One time I annihilated them,
Yes.
struck out like 13, 14 guys, and I just came out there and
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just some days you go out and you throw in flames, and other days it was like the heat wasn't there and you couldn't throw strikes, and we got beat pretty handily by those guys, and I'll tell you, it still hurts me to this
Yeah.
day to think
You
back to
threw
that game.
387 innings that year, didn't you?
Well, I might have Hal. I was thinking about this on a previous episode. Davis and I were talking though, and we were talking about how these pitchers today they throw any 80 pitches and they're out. And I was thinking back. I go, Hal, I bet you when I was pitching for you, I bet I threw
I'll
150
bet.
pitches
I'll
in those
bet. Yeah.
games. If you
Of course.
calculate it, if you're going to walk a dozen
Yeah.
guys and strike out a dozen
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah. You make
you're going to throw a
a
lot of
lot of
pitches,
pitches.
man.
That's right. Just to grow up and only be able to throw 80 or eight, I mean,
Yeah,
8 innings
yeah.
and 80 pitches. So that's crazy.
Of course, you're throwing probably what, 70 something miles an hour, 60 something.
Yeah, if that, even if
55,
that.
maybe 60. Yeah.
But yeah, it might have been
But and those
55
were
or
the years,
60.
by the way,
Yeah,
when Bob Gibson and Ferguson Jenkins would throw 165 pitches
yeah,
regularly in an
Yeah.
outing. They would.
yeah. Nolan Ryan throwing 350
Yeah.
innings,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
season, striking out
And at
380.
45, still throwing 98. Yeah.
Yeah,
For 25 years. Yeah.
25 years. Yeah.
yeah.
And never had. I don't know if he had Tommy John surgery or not. Did he? I don't know. I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
think
think he
he ever
did.
did. That guy, he is a freak of
He was the
nature.
first guy that I ever saw ride the stationary bike in the bullpen. Remember, he would all that if he was pitching or getting ready to pitch or whatever, he was always warming up
Hmm.
in the bullpen on a stationary bike. So he kept himself
Nolan
in
Ryan.
shape.
Yeah,
Yeah, Ryan. Yeah,
yeah. But he was just made out of
yeah,
steel
yeah.
apparently to do what he did. It'd be to be 45 years old, and he was still throwing
I
97,
know.
98 miles an hour. And he didn't just throw fastballs. He had that wicked curveball that must have been stressful on his arm and
Had to
shoulder
be.
and all his
And he walked. By the way, he
rotator
walked a lot
cuff,
of people too. He had struck out a lot of people, but he walked a lot of people. So he had to,
especially earlier in
he
his
had to
career.
throw a lot of pitches, no matter what.
Good deal.
Did you find your Sandberg shirt?
I sure did.
Let's see it.
By the way,
Oh, look at that. Oh,
by the way,
that was the big C.
that's the big C here
Yeah,
now.
yeah, that's
Now
it.
the thing about this show is we could see each other, but there's no real visuals on there. So this is just for our own edification,
I know,
folks.
I
So,
know. I love that. It's
but
nice.
yeah, well, I tell you what, it's Mr. Tommy DeKay here was the one who sent this to me. Well, what he did was he took it off the back of Ryan Sandberg when Sandberg was after the game. He just ripped it off of him, and after the Sandberg game in '80.
After all those home runs off Suter, he had to get the shirt back from him. Jeez.
Yeah, he just ripped it off and took off
I was
running.
so mad. I was trying to just destroy it. I didn't really want it. I was just so mad at Sandberg.
Those guys, they made us
But
watch that thing again on Marquee
uh,
TV just the other day.
I can't watch it, Hal. I don't want. Dave he always texts me whenever it's on. Hey, the Sandberg game's
Oh,
on. Go watch. I'm like, I don't want to watch that. Just like I don't want to watch Game 6 of the '85 World
I always
Series.
get it.
I don't want to
I always
see
get
that
it turned off
again.
just before the ball gets the bat. I mean, Suter's throwing the ball, and I'm saying, get that thing, get that thing, and cut that thing off.
Yeah,
So
this time it's not going to happen. Oh no, it is. It's all. It happens the same every time, no matter how many times you watch it.
No, he had like his ERA that year was like 1.35 or something like that.
It was his. That was his best. It was his best year as a Cardinal. He saved 46 games that year. We were talking about that last week, Davis. Remember?
unbelievable. Yeah, he was amazing.
That was incredible. That was well. The reason I say it is and I told Tom this. Bobby Costas was announcing the game for national TV. It was a Saturday afternoon game of the week. He and Tony Kubek were announcing the game, and he said at one point, I think the Cardinals were still up. He said, "Some team is going to lose this one, but if you're a true baseball fan, this is a great game because to watch Ozzie Smith just dazzle in the field like
Yeah,
he did,
yeah.
to watch Willie McGee just have it was the Willie McGee game, and just
McGee hit for the cycle.
get to the cycle. It was just incredible what he did,
Yeah.
and and the relievers, Lee Smith, gave up a couple of runs in the extra innings, and then
Unusual for him too.
yeah.
Yeah,
So the year you had the two-star relievers, they blow the saves and the wins.
Yeah, yeah,
It was a great baseball game, and I could see your perspective.
it was.
I could see your perspective, but the game is it's a much better game to watch if
Yeah,
you're on the winning
yeah,
side.
absolutely.
yeah. How we were talking one of the episodes we did, one of the very first episodes we did, we were talking about the '85 World Series because Dave and I were living together at college that fall,
Yeah.
and
Down in
Dave had made a
Carbondale, yeah.
bet. I had one of those fake plastic batting helmets, Cardinal batting helmet that I used to wear around to antagonize him. And Cardinals were great that year, right? And the Cubs were struggling. They had been to the playoffs the year before, and it was a disappointing year for the
Yes.
Cubs,
Yeah.
right? But Dave got cocky. We must have been drinking one night, and Dave said, "Well, if the Cardinals win the World Series, I'll wear that hat all around campus." And I mean, all his life, he's probably never had a Cardinal piece of paraphernalia on his body, right?
No,
So
no.
he's sweating. Cards are up 3-1.
I don't know why I made this bet because there was nothing reciprocal. There was nothing that I was
There
going to get,
wasn't.
but I
No.
said it because I was so mad. I said, something, the Cardinals aren't going to win, and if they do, I'll wear that helmet. Now,
Oh
who
yeah.
has a helmet?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Of course, I latched onto that, man. I was like, okay, that's a good bet.
When they went up 3 games to 1, I was like, what an idiot I am.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And then somehow, and I still have a plaque to Don Deckinger. What
Yeah,
was the umpire's name?
the umpire,
Who pretty
yeah.
much.
Dinkinger.
He just died last year.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah. He finally died. Yeah.
Because you guys wished it so long and it finally happened.
I think Whitey personally wished it so long. Whitey did.
That was Whitey's deathbed wish. I just want Dinkinger to die too.
That
Think about Whitey's career now. Whitey, he won what 3 division championships in a row in Kansas City, and they fired him because he couldn't win a World Series. And then he gets to St. Louis, and he gets there 3 times in 1 decade, and went to Game 7 in the two that he lost, and lost
Yeah.
both of them in Game 7. The two
And one of them he lost to the Royals,
that's right, one to the
which
Royals,
had to be doubly
doubly
painful.
painful with the Denkinger mistake. Replay would have turned around these days, but
They would have turned it around, but the Cardinals still had so many chances to get out of that inning. Remember the pop up that Jack Clark and Darrell Porter stood looking at each other and it dropped right at their
yes,
feet. That was an out.
yes,
The
yes,
Dinkinger play,
yes.
wasn't there a wild
Oh
pitch?
yeah.
There was just and Worrell just couldn't get the
The
strikeout.
guy that got the winning hit was Dane Orge, whom the Cardinals had traded to them. He traded to them, and he got a flare base hit to right field, driving the big
Or yeah, there was a couple dink hits in Balboni. Well,
Balboni.
Balboni's the one that hit the pop up that they
They
didn't
didn't
that
catch.
they didn't
Yeah,
catch, and then he got a hit, and
Carboni,
then
yeah.
Orge got a big hit. Orge was the DH for the Cardinals in '82 when they won the series, and he batted like 400. I mean, he was
he played AAA baseball here in Springfield. He played in Springfield. I
yeah,
watched him. He hit 22 home runs that year, and 20 of them were to left field. He's a left-hand hitter. He hit the other way. 20 of those 22 home runs were to left field.
and he batted 370. Hal, he won the batting title for
He
AAA
was
that year.
amazing.
So he batted 370, hit 20
Yeah,
home
and
runs, and a couple of years later he's on the Cardinals, and he was star in the World Series.
I think Leon Durham played first base, and Terry Kennedy was catching.
Ken Oberfeld was on that team in the early days in Springfield. Tommy Herr.
Tommy Herr was on that team. Tommy Herr. The funny thing about Tommy Herr, Tommy had he could wear the uniform from behind, as women loved to look at his ass, and it was hilarious to watch women in the ballpark. Couldn't wait till Tommy took the field. I mean, they're all looking at each other like he had that round rear end. They loved that. Oh my God, they loved that.
I remember a couple of those games, Dave. You went, and I thought you were looking at Tommy Herr a little funny out there.
Well, I was looking at. Yeah, you said that play was over to third base. What are you looking at second for? I said none of your business.
Yeah. You know who else was very popular in the stands with women was Tito Landrum. Tito was the first minor league. He was the first minor league player I saw wearing diamond earrings in both ears. And
Oh
he'd come in
wow!
the ballpark, and he had a physique a lot like Tommy Herr, and he was a handsome guy. He'd never have his hat on. He always had the full uniform of him and no hat. and he'd be coming in, and they like to come up through the grandstand sometimes just so you could see fans and stuff. So it was crazy.
Landrum was very charismatic. He
He
was a
was.
great interview. He always was.
Yeah,
If he was a little better player, he would have been a big star because he was kind of made for TV and
yes,
made for the
yes.
interviews and all
The
that.
other guy that was
Yeah.
on that played on that team was Kurt Ford, who as a rookie his first major league hit was a pinch hit ninth or tenth inning hit against the Cubs to win a ball game against the Chicago in St. Louis. He was coming up for the Cardinals, and he got a base hit.
Kurt Ford was not a big guy, small player,
Yeah,
speedy, good outfield. But I remember that what they said about him was Kurt Ford could pull a bullet.
yes,
Remember, he pulled everything, no matter how hard you threw. That guy, he would pull that
and
bullet
everything he hit
down
hard.
the line.
I mean, he's a little guy, but he hit the ball hard, line drives.
The original exit velocity guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Now, help me out now. From the night we were all together when we first met, Dave, did I tell you the story about the Leon Durham trade for Bruce Sutter? Did I tell you a story about that with me? The phone call to Whitey Herzog. Did I tell you that story?
I don't think you did.
I'm sitting in Springfield, Illinois. I'm a huge fan of the AAA Cardinals. I got to know the owner. His name was A. Ray Smith. I'll tell you a story about him later. And he had just come from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was an oil guy from Oklahoma, and he was mad because they wouldn't build him a new stadium in Tulsa. So he brought the team to Springfield. We thought, oh my God, I can't believe we couldn't fill stands for a high school game. We got a AAA team, and I was one of the first season ticket holders, so he told me everything. And by the way, he had under contract Satchel Paige. Satchel Paige would just show up in the ballpark. People didn't even know who he was. He just roam around the grandstands, and he loved Satchel Paige. He'd have him work in the stands and stuff. He'd just be saying hi to people and stuff. Great guy, but he had this ball club. It was really a good ball club, and Whitey Herzog in '81 gets named manager. So he's already done the Ozzie Smith trade, and it's near the end of the year. And I've been watching Leon Durham, who I thought was going to be a superstar. He would hit home runs in spring. Well, the railroad tracks. He'd hit them on the tracks over there. He'd hit trains in right field. He'd hit them out there. He and Oberkfell. I saw Oberkfell do the same thing. In that uh, big old, what was it? Whatever kind of tree it is out there. Huge tree across the road.
Oh yeah, Lanphier Park, wasn't it?
yeah, at Lanford Park. Yeah,
I'm in my office in Springfield, and I'm listening to KMOX radio, and it says they're making a big deal out of the fact that Whitey Herzog's new manager. He wants to make some trades. He's going to do some things. He's really going to shake things up, and he's taking calls from fans and about whether he should trade for. He wanted Bruce Sutter, who he wanted. So, and the rumor was it was Leon Durham and I think Terry Kennedy, who was the catcher. His dad was a general manager. Anyway, I'm thinking, well, hell, I'm just going to call in and give my opinion. So I literally dial the phone number at KMOX. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Bush Stadium. It was at Bush Stadium. So I get the operator at Bush Stadium. And I'm thinking she's going to say, okay, are you for it or against it? And check me off or whatever. And she goes, I said, I'm calling because I heard Whitey's taking, messages about what to do on these trades. And I live in Springfield. He's not even familiar with our farm system. I've watched these guys play. Leon Durham is going to be the future of the Cardinals. She says, can you hold just a minute? And I went, okay. So she puts him on hold. Next thing you know, he says, Whitey Herzog. And
You're kidding me.
I swear to God, it's a true story. I wish I'd had an audio tape of this. And I almost peed my pants. I'm serious. I'm going like, oh my God. I worked in the United States Senate. So I was downtown in the Senate office for Chuck Percy. And I'm going like, oh my Lord. I said, Mr. Herzog, I said, I apologize. I'm welcome to St. Louis. We love you. We know you're going to be great, but you're probably not familiar with the farm system. I'm a season ticket holder. I've watched Leon Durham. I wouldn't trade Leon Durham for anything. He's going to be the future of the St. Louis Cardinals. And so why do you let me go through all this whole shit? And at the end, he says, pardon my word there. At the end, he says, well, thank you for the phone call. He said, you know what? I told Mr. Bush Mr. Bush told me I got 3 years to turn this thing around. So I'm going to have to make some trades. So I appreciate your point of view. And he said, thanks for calling. Hung up. So I'm done. I'm thinking, that's no big deal. I got my message across. The next day, they announced that they made the trade for Leon Durham. And I thought, oh my God, that's just ruined everything. That's just ruined it. And of course, the next year they win the World Series with Bruce Sutter on the mound to finish the
yeah.
ninth inning of the World Series. And I'm going like, I ain't never expressing my opinion again to anybody who gets paid to do that. So that's an absolutely true story.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then when he hung up, he probably yelled at the person who put this guy through.
Well, he was notoriously famous for loving to interact with with the people who newspaper, especially guys. He didn't care for radio and TV, but he loved to sit around and just shoot the crap with press
Talk to
guys,
the
the press
writers.
guys, writers. Yeah. But anyway, so he wasn't afraid of anybody's comments, but he knew what he was going to do and he did it. So
Yeah, and he actually made that deal better. I was reading an article recently. I was telling Tom that apparently the Cubs kind of wanted instead of Ty Waller, another prospect in Philly,
yes,
the Cubs wanted Tommy Herr. They wanted
yes.
Durham, Herr, and then they take on Ken Reed's contract,
Oh, is that
and they
right?
would take Reed's off their hands.
Oh
So
my God.
that would have made it a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
And another time, Tommy and I are going to talk about worst Cubs trades, but I'd have to say that was one of them because you don't give up a guy like Bruce Sutter, a Hall of Famer like that. But
No,
anyway, that is a fascinating story. That is,
I thought the Cubs had gotten the better of the deal. I really did. I knew Steve was good,
Really?
but I didn't think that was what we needed. I thought we needed hitting and stuff like that. And I felt I nobody felt worse for Leon Durham than when he missed the ground ball in the playoffs when the ball went through his
oh,
legs against the
against San
Padres and
Diego,
San Diego. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, 1984, yeah.
I loved watching him. He was a tremendous player. He really was.
Yeah, he really had a great career ahead of him, and he derailed himself.
And Terry Kennedy, the catcher that I was so crazy about, I don't think he played a couple of years in the major leagues and just went away.
Well, he was the catcher for that Padres team when they won that, but he never blossomed into a star.
That's right.
He was a good player, but he was a decent player, but he never blossomed into a
Yeah, and
star.
he never
Right.
had a great arm. He was a good hitter. He never had a great arm. So
Yeah, he struggled a little bit with throwing people out too. Yeah,
Ty Waller had a gun for an arm. That guy had a gun. Wow. They made him a center
that
fielder. I think he
yeah.
played third base when he was here. I think.
And the Cubs had him at third, and
No, I remember him as a third baseman in the minors as a
Yeah,
prospect,
yeah. But
and
he had a gun. Oh, that guy could throw.
that was the whole MO on him was
Yeah,
this guy's got an arm that like you never seen,
yeah.
and he's fast and he's gonna be a good player, but he never quite panned out either.
So we got to see Tim Raines play here with whatever Montreal's team was in Denver, I think, before they got a major league team.
Yes.
So Raines would come here and he would just tear people up. He was a tremendous hitter and base stealer. Of course, we didn't realize he had a great cocaine problem, but I think
Well, yeah, that was it.
he
Yeah,
said he spent $1 million
that was
on
his
cocaine in his career.
that was his side job.
Side
Yeah,
job, yeah, yeah,
right.
that was his hobby.
yeah,
But Denver had a really good team, and that was, of course, the Expos club, and of course the Expos had those great, very very competitive teams in the '80s. And
yes.
at the same time, they never got fortunate enough to win in the postseason. But and I recall when the Springfield Redbirds did win the American Association, they beat Denver
They did.
in the playoffs, and it was an upset. It was an upset because Denver was loaded.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wonder who all was on that team. I try to remember. Was Tim Wallach in the
I think
minors at
Tim
that
Wallach
point?
was
You know
probably
those
on. Yeah,
guys.
played third base, wasn't he?
Ellis Valentine, some of these. I can't remember the names, but I remember they were loaded, and we thought, oh God, they're going to come in and just sweep the Redbirds, but the Redbirds pulled it
To
off.
finish the story on the Springfield Cardinals, not that anybody really cares, but that owner was here just a couple of years, and the city invested a couple $100,000 to fix up the stadium, which still wasn't very nice. And he struggled to get
Yeah.
2,000 a night here. He needed 2,000
Yeah,
to break even. He told me, and he barely got it in the middle of the night, like the guy from the uh, Baltimore
from the
Colts
Colts.
moved to
Yeah.
Indianapolis. He moved to Louisville, Kentucky, and he was trying to sell that team to a group of businessmen in Springfield, all friends of mine. I would go to the meetings. I didn't have any money to put in, but these guys were bankers and stuff. And he wanted 400,000 bucks for the team. He would have sold it to them for
Hmm.
400, and the most they could raise was 250. And without them knowing it, in the middle of the night, he goes to Louisville, Kentucky. And that year, he played at the fairground stadium where the University of Louisville played football. He played on their football stadium. He was the first minor league franchise to ever draw 1 million fans. And the next year, Louisville Slugger bought the team from him for 5 million bucks. So 2 years prior
Wow.
to we could have bought that. Of course, the guys here, if they'd bought it, they never would have moved it to Louisville to make money because they wanted to keep.
They might have. They might have because I don't think they were going to make money in
No,
Springfield because he just couldn't draw that well. They might have sold it for a couple mil and made some dough.
$5 million. Can you believe that? So
That's interesting though. I didn't know there was a buyer group in Springfield trying to hold on to him because I always thought that A. Ray Smith he just used Springfield as a stopping ground to build up and he was going to move him out of there no matter what because he needed a place to stop. He blackmailed Tulsa, but it
yeah,
didn't work, and then he
instead he
just used
sued him and he
Springfield for a
eventually
couple
paid
years.
off the $200,000 or something that he owed him in leases or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, enough of that story.
I had forgotten that they came from Tulsa. I thought they had come from Louisville, but he came here and then went to Louisville. That's yeah. You're right. You're right.
Louisville's now the Cincinnati AAA team because it's really close to Cincinnati, you know. So they have a great synergy between Louisville and Cincinnati. And the AAA team for the Cardinals, of course, now is in Memphis. So
Memphis. Yeah.
that's where they ended up. And I think they originally had a local ownership group, AutoZone, whoever the owner of AutoZone was. It was the first stadium built there was AutoZone Park, the new stadium, when the Cardinals went, and that's how they got there. So I think they've since sold it to somebody else. But my dad nicknamed me Hal because he was a Cardinal fan. By the way, he was. My mother always would make him when he would complain about the Cubs beating us. She would say to him, like revealing something we weren't supposed to say. You were a Cub fan when you were a little boy before you became a Cardinal fan. She'd say to him. So anyway, he grew up in Missouri, so I'm not sure how he became a Cub fan first, but he liked the
Yeah.
Cubs and he named me Hal Smith, and I was
when
so
did when did he go to the dark side?
well. I was still it was before I can remember. So
All right. So in other words, he became a Cardinal
yeah.
fan.
So his dream of me, in fact, at age 6 or 7, he'd say, "Show them how Stan Musial stands at the plate." And I could do a little 6-year-old. I could wiggle my butt and stand there like Stan. He had an unusual stance. And all my aunts and uncles would be tickled at that. And of course, I was destined to be a ball player. I unfortunately was destined to be a non-professional ball player. Nobody would ever pay me,
Yeah.
but I played all the way through.
Like us all. Now but you did play college ball,
I
right?
did play at University of Illinois Springfield. I played there. I played at Springfield College, and I liked it. It was really great fun. I broke my leg as a senior. I got taken out of double play, so I
Oh,
didn't play after that much. But
okay.
was enjoyed it very much. I played for a former major leaguer who was from Springfield. He was the first manager at Sangamon State University. He played for the Washington Senators, like Whitey Herzog did when he was young. Can't say his name, but great guy. And we were such a poor team. He would say to us, "I'm not sure I'm going to go on the road game with you. I'm not sure I want people to see me with you guys."
Now that's a coach right there.
I've been on a few softball teams like that.
We come off the field with our shortstop. He uh, he went back for a fly ball, a pop fly, and we were playing University of Illinois in Champaign. We were playing the JV team. He's going back into short left field. He reaches up, and the ball misses his glove and hits him right in the chest. And so our coach from the sideline says, "Somebody throw up a tent out there. It's a circus going on." Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Put a tent over that
so
circus.
the
Yeah.
next inning, Larry was the last hitter. He left his helmet on when he went out to the field, and the coach said, "I'm glad you're wearing a helmet this time." So he could get hit in the head with a pop fly. But anyway, we had so much fun. He was a great guy. So anyway,
Uh,
but I was in the ballpark in St. Louis for so many of those playoff games during the '80s. I took my dad to the World Series in '82. He got to sit with me and watch the Cardinals win. We watched Ozzie Smith hit the only left-handed home run he ever hit against the Dodgers. And on that Labor Day, my son, who would later work for the Cardinals, was sitting with me in the same row with Willie McGee, his mother. And he later then worked with Willie McGee and told Willie that story. And he actually cried when he told him the story because Willie said, I was so awkward as a player. I didn't want my parents to come watch me in the minor leagues. I was so awkward.
really?
And he told me that when he got to the majors, all the hitting coaches wanted to change him. And Whitey said, "Keep your damn hands off him. Let him do what he does." And so Willie looked at my son and said last year, he said, "I don't think analytics is for everybody." So
Well, if only they would have done the same thing with Jordan Walker, he might be doing well in the majors. But they tried to mess with him.
They tried to mess with him and it may have ruined him. I hope they haven't. But anyway, so
Yeah.
I was there, and of course, and even in 2019, the last game that they won in a playoff, no, it was at 13 when they played Boston and lost. I was at the last game that they won in a World Series. They went on to lose that World Series, but
Yeah. Yeah.
That was 2000. What year?
13,
13,
2013.
That's the
13.
last year they won in the playoffs.
That's the last time they were in the World
Oh,
Series.
the World
Last
Series.
time, and it was against Boston. That was, remember, Alan Craig hurt his ankle and he
Yeah.
couldn't run, and
He tripped over an umpire, and it basically ended his career because he was never the same hitter after
Was the
that.
umpire Don Deckinger?
it was Don's younger cousin, I think. Yeah,
Right.
but we won that game, by the way, on a interference play at third base.
Yeah.
Nobody in the ballpark could figure out why the guy at third base was getting to go home for free with the winning run, and the umpire was calling interference on the third baseman, who interfered
Yeah.
because the ball went down in the corner. And
Yeah. I think the Cardinals were up 2 games to 1 in that series, and then
yes,
they lost. They lost the
yes.
next
One
two
other quick
games.
story for you. I'm sitting on World Series tickets. By the way, I told you I worked for Chuck Percy in the United States Senate. I flew to Washington D.C. At the time when we were playing the Atlanta Braves for the National League championship. I get into the senator's office. I walk into his assistant's office. And I look on the desk. There's a huge envelope that's got St. Louis Cardinals return address on it. He's the Chicago. I mean, he's from Chicago, but and I said, why does he have mail from the Cardinals? And she goes, oh, he was a Cub fan. She said, oh, they mailed him tickets. They expect us to pay for them, but we're gonna send them back. I said, wait a minute, tickets to every playoff game and World Series game. I said, I'll write you a check right now for those tickets. You sure you want them? You can have them. I mean, it's up to you, but we're not going to use them. We're going to send them back. I said, yeah. So I wrote a check at that. I think it was probably $180, which is ridiculous compared to what it would cost now.
That's one game. Yeah.
I flew home with those after I finished my work, and the Atlanta Braves. I think they had a rain out that night, and we ended up beating the Braves. So I got to go to the World Series, and I using my, as I should in politics, I shared some of those tickets with supporters of Senator Percy. I would make them available,
Hmm.
but I
Hmm.
kept Game 6 and Game 7. So I'm going to go to either 6 or 7 myself. And here's what it came down to: we're behind 3 games to 2. So do I pick Game 6, or do I pick Game 7 and we lose Game 6? I never get to go to the World Series.
Hmm.
I said I can't take that chance. I took Game 6. They won Game 6, but they won it in Game 7. So I was not at Game 7.
Oh, you
I
weren't there.
sold them to give them to somebody for face value, to a good friend who was a supporter of the senator who wanted to go to the game. So he would have taken either 6 or 7. I made the decision, but you never know what to do in that
I know that is a tough decision. Yeah.
first World Series, 1982.
That's a tough one. We were just talking to Johnny Ballpark last week, and he went to the '64 series, and his grandfather had tickets for the game 6 and 7, and he was going to give them to his father, and he said, "Well, I'll give one," and then or his father said, "Give one to give game 6 to Johnny Ballpark, and if they go to game 7, then I'll go." And it
Yeah,
was against the Yankees, and then the Yankees ended up winning game 6. So then his
yes,
father got to go to game 7. So they both got to see the game, but
But they were not. They were rooting against the Cardinals.
they were rooting. They were Cubs
The
fans,
Cardinals won.
but they also appreciated great baseball and great
Well, being
teams
in Game
like.
7 of a World Series, yeah, that's a great event.
Kenny Boyer's nephew is a dentist here in Springfield. I'm trying to think of his
Really?
first name. Yeah, he's still a dentist here, about ready to retire, I think. Yeah, so he was the son of the only Boyer brother that didn't play baseball professionally. I don't know which one it was.
Oh, I see.
Cleet, of course, and Kenny both played, Major League Baseball. But
Uh,
so this was Cloyd, I think, was the other one, third one, Cloyd.
huh.
This was
Cloyd,
his son.
Cletus,
Yeah,
and
and
Kenny.
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 Ken Cloyd's
Very good.
son is the dentist here in Springfield.
His name is Teeth Hernandez.
I think his name is Ortho.
Yeah, right.
In 1985, though, the reason I got those tickets, Kurt Ford, who played for the AAA Cardinals that got called up that year in '85, his parents could not come to the World Series, and he had tickets to the World Series, and I bought face value his tickets because he knew me from Springfield, and his foster family called him and said, "Hey, Hal Smith, our friend, wants to go. Do you have any tickets? He'll pay for them." He said, "Yeah, my mom and dad can't come." So that's how I ended up in the ballpark in '85 to see the Cardinals win. The National League Championship Series or whatever it was. I guess they didn't win it because they won it in L.A. and then they won the World Series or went to the
Yeah,
World Series afterwards.
yeah, they did. They wrapped it up in L.A.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
six
When Jack
six
Clark hit
games.
the home run,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
still remember Pedro Guerrero on left field taking his glove and slamming it into the ground when Jack Clark hit that
Well,
three-run homer over his head.
instantaneously knew that ball was gone
Yeah,
as soon
yeah,
as it left the
yeah.
bat. He
That's
crushed
crazy.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I met Jack at the Cardinals Hall of Fame. I think it was last year. I went up to a ball game and I was waiting around. I said I'm going to go into the museum, Cardinal Hall of Fame museum, and I went up there and I looked at the sign. It says, "Hey, at 2 o'clock, Jack Clark's going to be here and he's going to talk to the folks that hang around." I was like, "Well, hell, I'm hanging around here," and got a nice picture of myself with
yeah.
Mr. Clark, and he told stories for about an hour and 15 minutes, and he was a super nice guy,
He's a really
really
good
nice
guy. He's not real good with
guy.
money, but he was a really good guy.
Well, the funny thing he said was, he said in retrospect on his career that when he left the Cardinals and went to the Yankees, he said it was the dumbest move he ever made in his
Yeah,
life. He should
yeah.
he should say. But what happened to him was he got caught up in the year of that collusion when
Yes,
when the owners were colluding and they wouldn't sign anybody.
that's right.
And here's Clark hitting, carrying that team,
Yeah.
and they were basically offering him almost like a pay cut
Yes.
to stay with the Cardinals, and
Yes.
he was like, "I gotta," and none of the owners would put an offer out. Steinbrenner, of course, finally broke down, and they
Yeah.
gave him a call kind of behind the closed doors. Hey, you didn't hear this from me, but I got a contract for you, and he took it, but it didn't work out well for him.
Yeah, the other guy that played in Springfield that I knew very well was two guys. John Urea, who ended up with the Cardinals, later to San Diego. He played only
Hmm.
about 5 or 6 years total. But his best friend was George Frazier, who ended up
Yeah, I remember
with the
George Frazier.
Yankees, and he may be one of the only people in World Series history to have three losses. He lost the Yankees lost that series that year, and he lost three of the games.
Oh,
He came in to
no
relieve
way!
and lost three games. And to his credit, George Steinbrenner came to him after the last game and tried to cheer him up. He told me the story. He said he came by and said, "Don't feel bad, kid.
Really?
You did your best. Don't worry about it. We're not down
Don't,
on you." Yeah,
don't worry about it. Also, don't worry about coming to spring training next year.
Cincinnati will be calling you anytime.
And Billy Martin was standing over to the side and said, "He never said that to me."
But I remember George Frazier pitching for the Springfield Redbirds, and he threw hard, and they always said, "Oh, he's got a major league arm." He never did well, and but he stuck around a long time, and he
Yeah.
did develop himself into a pretty decent pitcher, and he had some good years.
Yeah, he did. He did. I've also been, by the way, for the Cub fans that might be listening, been to the Iowa ballpark, beautiful ballpark with AAA club, the Des Moines ballpark there. I remember
Hmm.
in the old days before they fixed it up, it was right on the river. When it would flood the whole field. It was terrible. So they built a levee system of some kind to protect that stadium now, and they rebuilt the stadium part of it from when I was there years ago, but really fun. I've always been a huge fan of both college baseball and Major League Baseball. So wherever I traveled in business, and I spent 30 years traveling all over the country and around the world, but I would always try to make a ball game. And if I went to Arizona, if I went to Tempe, Arizona, I'd make sure I went by Arizona State and I would always pick about 3:30, 4 o'clock because they would usually be taking hitting. Most guys would have classes in the morning and then if they didn't have a game, they take hitting or infield, outfield, whatever. And I got to the point I worked in Tallahassee, Florida, for a 4-year project I had at one point, and I'd go out and Billy or not, what was his name, Mike Martin, who was the manager there for many years. He has the record of most appearances in the College World Series without ever winning one. But he was a great guy. Put a lot of guys like J.D. Drew in the major leagues and stuff. And he would always be worried because I'd have a suit and tie on. So he thought I was an agent. He would, if he'd see me in the stands in the afternoon, in those days you couldn't talk to an agent. That was really bad. So he said, "Oh no, you're the lottery guy. You're the gaming guy or whatever." He said, "That's okay." He'd walk over there because I have a cell phone. I'd be talking business, but I'd be waiting to, go to the airport, and the airport isn't that far from Seminole Stadium there. So he'd go, "Oh yeah, you're okay, no problem." But he was, just to watch those guys. I also at Vanderbilt watched the Corbin, the coach there, an amazing coach there. He uses a metronome when he takes infield practice with his players. And literally, the metronome is to tell him when to hit the next ball, and they just keep. They'll have two people at every
Huh.
position on the infield, two or three catchers, and they could go through a round of infield and never make an error, and they'd have two or three people. So he'd hit the ball, the guy would start the double play with that group. Before that ball got to first base, he'd hit to the next guy, and they'd start the next double play, and the catchers were on the side fielding him, and it was amazing to watch some of those coaches.
I think we tried that when I was on your team in Corey League, and that was when I started wearing that plastic batting helmet because I was kept getting a hit on the head with the ball at first base.
There was a lot of the
Major
wildness.
League Baseball, Major League Baseball stopped doing infield for the and outfield for the crowd. They do it before the ballpark fills up. I used to beg my parents to go early. So if you got a chance to see any hitting, but most importantly, I wanted to see them take infield. I wanted to see their arms and the outfield arms. That's the first time I ever saw balls that would rise,
Yeah.
get the backspin off the ball and the throw from right field. Watch a right fielder throw the ball. Oh my God! You get a side view of that to see that ball go uphill. You go like, how the hell? My ball goes like this. Why does that go like
Yeah.
that? So
Yeah, come to think of it, I don't think I've ever seen, yeah,
no.
been to a major league game and got to see any of the defensive
And
practice.
when Mark
No,
McGuire was and Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa were in that run, they would time that. Usually the home team hits before the crowd opens up 2 hours before, so that you miss them. But many times they would have McGuire hit last, so that as people came in, they'd actually get to see him power the ball
Hmm.
out of the park. In Atlanta, we lived in Atlanta at one time when he was playing for the Cardinals. He would come in and the crowd would be there just to see him hit. So visiting teams always get to hit. Nobody cares about the visiting team unless it's got somebody like that.
yeah, and Wrigley Field, they just a lot of the batting practice. The guys would wait outside over by the firehouse on the outside of the left field wall,
Yes,
and
yes,
just wait out there for just shag and fly balls, home run balls, that is. But
yeah, absolutely.
Hal, we have, I believe we have my old coach.
Yeah, Hal, we have another guest in the studio with us. It's this guy actually he wasn't actually invited on, but he found out that we were having my old coach as a guest, and he insisted on equal time. So this guy was Dave's coach for a couple years, Davis's coach for a couple of years, and I think it'll be interesting for you guys to kind of compare and contrast your coaching
Yeah, if you
styles.
don't mind, Hal, if you don't mind staying on here for a minute or two, yeah,
I do have a car waiting, but I'll make that. I'll tell them to hold up.
our show, our producer Joe, will you pay for his car? No, no, we won't. All right, you're on your own there, Hal. But
Okay, okay.
anyway, let me just tell you this: before I joined Tommy on his team, he was on your team at the time. I was on a team,
Before Coach Andrews.
yeah, before Coach Andrews, and his name was Dom Perignon, Dominic Perignon, and he was our coach. And he hangs out here a lot. I think he thinks he's going to get a sandwich or something. But anyway, he worked his way in, and since you're Tom's old coach, I thought I'd have my old coach in. He keeps hanging around, so I might as well bring him in.
Mr. Perignon, please welcome to Baseball Health Studios. Nice to have you.
Well, thank you very much. Means a lot to be here. I overheard some of the Coach Hal's stuff, and I wish I knew some of the stuff that he knew when I was coaching.
It was probably an educational experience for you to hear how a coach like Hal, who has such a positive influence on his players, operates.
Yeah, I took a little bit, maybe a little different approach. I rewarded my kids.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good.
I give them a cigarette for every hit.
Uh huh.
I gave them,
Uh huh.
if I said, you hit for the cycle, and then one kid said, "What's that?" And I said, "I don't know." But anyway, I give them at the end of the day, I gave, actually before the game, I gave them all frescas. You
Oh,
see,
wow.
well, I figured the
Yeah.
sugar in it, but it turns out there's no sugar in Fresca. They just like saccharin. So yeah, their hearts
Hmm.
would be beating, and you know. And then I told them, if they did well, they'd get a cigarette and maybe some of those hot chips.
Yeah.
But they got into the hot chip bag, and they get that red stuff, that red dust got on their fingers, and they were making errors, and you know, I don't know if you ever did that, Hal, but I thought that would be a
No,
good idea. Do you,
we
but
we had the recycle award. If you lost, you got to take the recycling empty bottles to the garbage can, but that was about it.
Oh yeah,
well,
yeah.
if our team lost, I told them they'd have to wear my wife's bras. So one day
Couldn't
they
be-
didn't believe me. So one day we lost. I brought them in and said, "You lose this one, we lost quite a bit." I said, "You lose this one, you're going to have to wear these." And of course we lost. And then those kids they took off. They just started running like hell. One of them stuck around though and just said, "Can I have one?" And
Was his name Tom?
no, I think that was before I didn't have Tommy on my team. Tommy wasn't on my team. He was on your team. You guys were damn good. I have to say that much. Remember that day we were supposed to play you, and then all of a sudden, I faked a heart attack.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
yeah, and you guys were like, "We're ready to play," and I said, "Well, hell, I'll take a look at you guys." And my kids had cut off jean shorts. Excuse me.
Coach Dom, we were Hal would when we had a good game. Hal would take us to Dairy Queen
I
after the
did.
game. Did you guys have a tradition similar to that?
No, I would tell them, get on those bikes and get the pedaling. And remember that ballpark over by that highway? Remember that one?
The one they closed down, a bit
He
dangerous.
refused to play at that one. I said, "Hell, I'll play."
I
Uh,
thought the striping of the lanes should not be the stripe down to first
well,
base.
that was the
Yeah.
home run marker. So anything over the middle lane was a home run. You know how it was, Hal. You get
You guys went through a number of center fielders that season, if I recall.
yeah. There's one that we still haven't found yet. There was as far as I know, he's down in Alabama on the front of a rig. But I don't know what happened to him. But his mom called me for 3 weeks. I said, "Stop." I said, "I don't know." Hell.
Your kids didn't have to worry about riding their bike home much because if they won, because they didn't win enough to ride their bike home, they'd have to
Yeah.
call a cab or something, didn't they?
Well, sometimes I just I would slice their tires if they lost. Hal, you know about incentives.
You were famous for leaving early. If they were behind in the fifth, you just might disappear.
I'd show up about the third and leave by about the sixth. We had one kid, he was real good about managing the team.
You didn't want to have to face the parents after a tough
You know
loss.
how parents could be in the stands. They could be
Oh yeah.
pretty mean. I would
Oh
get
yeah.
fist fights with them all the time. And that was just the moms.
Oh man, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good.
that was terrible. But you know how it is, Hal. You've gotten a fist fight with a couple of moms there, haven't you?
I avoided the moms that way if I could.
All right. Well,
I took extra infield and outfield, so I was really busy when they were.
infield and outfield, what is that?
But and Dom, now you played a lot of ball growing up, right?
No, I didn't play. I used to just go and just beat people up. I didn't like ball players. I used to go beat them up. Somebody told me, "Go do this. We'll give you $5 a game." I said, "I'm in. What do you got to do?" And they said, "Just you know." But I thought I was pretty good about it with the cigarettes and the Fresca and the hot chips and stuff.
Yeah,
But
that's pretty good. That's good.
It's a merit system.
I like the way you gave signals at third base. You're very discreet. You had a great signal system.
yeah, I just said, "Go! Run, you MFers!" I just said, "Run!" You said you members, you don't run right now. I get out there, I drag him to second. Kid's like, I don't want to do this. You remember that, Davis?
I remember that's why I left the team.
Yeah, you were a bit of a jerk.
You're
But
you're a tremendous influence on your players. I know
well, I
you are.
appreciate that. You know that both of us, Hal, we come from the same ilk. You know,
Yes,
we
that's right.
just we both want to get out there and do what we can for the community here. You know, my family was from France. You know, and they moved here, and they dropped me off at Aunt Wilma. And they moved back. You know, they were into grapes and stuff, and I went and I just started working at a toll booth near Belvedere, Illinois, and then I got fired from that. You know, they told they I was like taking a couple extra quarters and stuff. And
Well, Coach Dominic, I can't thank you enough for dropping into our little show here. And
Really inspirational for me too.
I'm sure if we talked long enough, we would find some similarities between your coaching style and Hal's. But so far, we haven't.
I tell you what, Ward Davis, he loved the cheerleaders I brought in. There were Trixie and Bubbles.
Uh,
I brought that in. You know, Hal, you never brought cheerleaders in like that.
Great thought. Maybe we'd have won that championship, Tom, if we'd had the.
if we had cheerleaders and another pitcher, we might have won that championship.
Yeah, we had Trixie and Bubbles, and the kids absolutely loved it.
So you go to Benny's afterwards if they win, right?
Yeah, we take them over there, and they like the music, and they play on the poles and stuff. And it was a good time, and yeah, you could smoke in there. They gave them the cigarettes, and they were happy about that. But I don't even remember what Davis if he was any good or not. Yeah,
By the way, Dom Perignon,
Uh,
that sounds like the Champagne family, doesn't it?
my nickname was Plentitude. Yeah, they were into grapes, and Plenitude's maturation time for grapes, and I don't know anything about it. I went into the toll booth business.
well, you made a wise choice.
I told my grandfather I was coming back over there, and he said Sacre Blue, something like that. I don't know what he was talking about, but anyway, and Hal, it was nice meeting you. I got to get out of here. I got Davis. He's still a jerk. I don't know what Tommy. It's pleasure. You were the one who said just bring him in. Just bring him in. He's been
Yeah.
hanging out there for a little bit, and I see there's a half a sandwich over there, so I'm gonna grab that and go.
All right. You do that, Dom.
Well, great to meet you, Dom. Thanks. Good to see you again. I should say for a
Good to
couple
see
of
you
days.
too, Hal. You a hell of a job there with your team.
Thank you. You did too. What was your career record now? 4-75 or something like that, or 4-80.
No, I think you're right on the loss column. I don't believe there were four. I don't believe there was a win.
Yeah, such a pleasure to have you on the show, Dom. And we'll,
I'd love to be back.
yeah, yeah.
Actually, Dom, it's time for you to go. Yeah, it's time for you to go. I mean, you haven't changed since I saw you as a coach, so it's time for you to go.
All right, Davis. Well, that was interesting. Thanks for bringing your old coach in.
Yeah, that was a mistake, I think, bringing him on. I feel badly because you had such a great guy and a great coach, and here I have
Yeah,
this guy.
yeah.
I have this guy, and
Not every kid's so lucky, I guess.
I suppose. But we ended up on the same team eventually,
That's great,
and
and you have a lifetime friendship for sure. That's a great thing.
exactly.
Yep. Davis and I have been hanging out since kindergarten.
Did you ever ride your train at all, or was that?
I don't think I ever rode the train when you were on there, Davis. I rode a train with you one morning in Chicago. We were trying to get tickets to that NASCAR race
Oh yeah, yeah,
back in
yeah.
the back in the 90s. We made an unsuccessful attempt to walk up at the first Chicago Speedway Winston Cup race, but man, nobody was giving up their tickets. It was sold out. And
Yeah, we walked around the crowd. We took a metro train, a suburban train down to Joliet, and then they had a shuttle buses, and we went over there and we walked around, and we actually ran into a couple of old grade school friends, and they were going, but nobody. We were going, so we just go around and just like, we can't get a ticket from anybody. But let's see if we can grab a beer from somebody. We grabbed a couple beers from
We
people.
were able to get beer. We couldn't get a ticket. I've probably been to 25 or 30 NASCAR races, and I've never been to one where you couldn't walk up and somebody was dumping tickets. And this
But
one,
it
I
was
was
it
amazed.
was the first one. Yeah.
I got one that's worse for you. We lived in Atlanta in '96 when the Olympics were there, and my daughter she was about 6 years old. She was seven maybe. Couldn't wait to go to see the Olympics, the gymnastics. And I said, well, we don't have a ticket. They're sold out. I
Hmm.
said, but I'll tell you what, I'll take you downtown and we'll just do the same thing you tried to do. See if we could scalp a ticket somewhere. Well,
Yeah.
all I knew was what time they were going to be on television. I didn't realize that they were pre-taping the event. And we got to the venue and people were coming out of the venue.
Yeah, you can have my ticket now. Here you go. All right. Well, listen, I gotta wrap up because I actually have a work meeting that I gotta jump onto.
Hal, it's great to talk to you. Nice to see you again. We'll catch up soon. You've been great on the show, and we
Thanks.
sure
Yes.
appreciate you being
And
on. And
we'll
Thanks.
you're
definitely have you back sometime too.
Let's all get together in
We
Springfield.
will do that, sir. All right, Hal. We'll see you, Coach. All right. So once again, thanks to our halftime guests, Hal Smith and Davis's old coach, Dominic Perignon.
I believe it's Perignon.
Perignon.
Yeah.
Let's talk second week of baseball here. The Cardinals came in. They're starting off here 6 games over 500 at 48 and 42. They had taken 3 out of 4 from the Nats. They're hot. Things are going their way, right? But Tuesday game is rained out, so they play a doubleheader at home against the cross-state rival Royals. Cards lose this first game 6-4. They really just got outplayed. They got up 1-0 early in the bottom of the first, and then they scored 2 more in the second. Arenado finally hit his 8th home run. They're up 3-0. Andre Palante's on the mound. Top of the 5th, though, the Royals get to him. He gives up 3 runs. We got a tie game, 3-3. Then in the top of the 6th, Salvador Perez, the Royals catcher, hits a solo home run, and the Royals are up 4-3. They had 2 more runs in the 8th, and the Cardinals are not able to come back from that. Goldschmidt did hit a solo homer in the 9th, his 13th of the year, to make it 6-4, but that's the way it ended, and the Cardinals dropped the first game of that doubleheader. Now, the second game, Cardinals had Gordon Graceffo make his first start as a major leaguer. Lars Nootbaar, your favorite player,
I
Dave.
told you about Lars Nootbaar, didn't I?
You told me about Lars Nootbaar. Bottom of the second, Newt hits a solo home run. Great to have him back, by the way. They've sorely missed him
Yeah.
in the lineup. He's really kind of a spark plug player for him. So he hit his 6th home run. Cards get up 1-0. Teams are trading punches through the 5th inning, and it's 5-4 the Royals. But the Cardinals bullpen just couldn't slow the Kansas City down. They scored again, a run in the 6th, a run in the 7th, a run in the 9th, and they put the Cardinals away 8-5. Take a doubleheader from them in St. Louis. This was a frustrating doubleheader. The Cardinals did not play horrible, but they definitely were outplayed by the Royals in both of these games. Kansas City came to town ready, willing and able to make it happen. So then we go to a day off on Thursday, and that's when they get into the Cubs and Cardinals series, a 4-game series in St. Louis. So I think before we cover that, let's cover the first series that the Cubs played last week.
Last week they had Monday off, July 8th, and so they ended up they get to go on the road, and it's a tough road series, obviously. Jameson Taillon shuts down the Orioles in game 1, 6 innings, 2 earned runs. Bush stays hot, 4 hits, including a home run. Happ and Suzuki stay hot. Cubs win 9-2.
Seems like Bush is back on track. He got off to such a hot start, then really hit the skids in June. But seems to be back.
He really is. He's performed well, and his fielding off and on, but lately he's done well. But the next day, the Cubs pitchers continue their mastery. Imanaga goes 6 scoreless, 1 walk. He gets his 8th win. His ERA drops to 2.97. Bush, again, Corner and Bellinger get 2 more hits. But Bellinger in this game, the interesting thing is he was hit in the hand by a pitch. breaks his finger, and he goes on the IL. So that's a big loss for the Cubs during the win. But the Cubs actually hold on to the shutout 4-0, and win that second game. And you think you're doing pretty well, and then the next day, the offense comes alive, and Suzuki, a couple of doubles, a triple, 3 RBIs. Again, Suzuki, Bush, and Happ have been carrying this offense. And Bellinger was doing okay too, but in Swanson, it looks like he looks like he's going to come out of it, but he gets an over, But he hit a home run in this game. Oh, and and Nico Horner is on a hitting streak. He's on a bit of a tear too. So the top of the order.
Well, you knew these guys weren't gonna bat. They weren't gonna perform that poorly for the whole rest of the season. It's a matter of time. But they did. It was a long period of time where the Cubs just couldn't get anything going offensively.
But incredibly enough, the Cubs win 8-0. They another shutout, 2 shutouts. I think they gave up 2 runs that whole series to a very high-powered Baltimore offense, and they sweep the Orioles, which was incredible. And didn't St. Louis do that to Baltimore?
That's what I was just gonna remark. Look at this, Davis. The Cardinals and the Cubs, teams that they've had a few good. They've had their moments and they've had their bad moments and haven't been that consistent. But each of them swept the Orioles in a 3-game series. They're one of the best teams in the major leagues. Amazing.
That is pretty amazing.
Cardinals had a day off on Thursday. I think the Cubs were playing their 3rd game with the Orioles on Thursday, right? So they didn't get the day off, and they come into St. Louis.
Right. And let me tell you what happened on that Thursday game, Tommy.
I was gonna say this game really pissed me off, even though I saw it coming from a mile away. Yeah.
So you never know what you're going to get from Kyle Hendricks.
Except when he plays the Cardinals.
Cardinal fans, and you mentioned it to me before. You said, I know what we're going to get from Kyle Hendricks, but I did not even expect this. 7 innings of shutout ball, 5 hits, 1 walk. His ERA has dropped below 7, Tommy. It's at 6.78 now. And the Cubs win.
Yeah, he's whittling away.
Going into that Saturday doubleheader. Now, I don't want to talk about that. You better talk about that doubleheader on Saturday.
Yeah, but anyway, just wrapping up that Friday game, a 5-1 victory for the Cubs. Yeah, Hendricks just completely stifled the team and utterly frustrated the entire Cardinal fan base. And even the announcers were talking about it. They were just like, they got something in their heads about Kyle Hendricks. Everybody else is knocking the guy around, and they can't hardly even get any hits. Sonny Gray had pitched that game for the Cardinals, and he went 7 innings. Gray has not been a lights out pitcher the last month or so, but he did 7 innings, 9 hits, 3 runs, kept him in the game, but they just weren't going to score.
Yeah, I think that's a quality start, but that was.
Yeah. So here are the Cardinals now. Suddenly, after looking so good the previous week, they had dropped the doubleheader to Kansas City, lost this first game. All 3 at home, 3 straight losses at home. But they come back in on Saturday, and there's a doubleheader scheduled with the Cubs. So things tilted their favor after Friday night. So game 1, Burleson hits a 3-run homer in the first inning. The Cubs defense allowed 7 unearned runs. It was really a little bit of a circus there in the first couple innings. They just couldn't settle down defensively, and the Cardinals took advantage of every opportunity. This one got away from the Cubs early, and the Cardinals win this one 11-3. Lance Lynn got the win. He pitched 6 innings, only 2 earned runs. Gave up a home run to Suzuki, but other than that, the Cardinals were pretty much in total command of that one. Now, second game, a lot closer. At the bottom of the first inning, Mason Wynn did lead off with a solo homer, the first leadoff home run of his career. That was his 5th of the year. Contreras also hits a solo homer, his 10th. So Contreras came back, after being out for 40 games. He didn't miss a beat. I think he's hit 4 home runs in the first 7 or 8 games since he got back. So, I was concerned, is he going to be able to come back and pick up the stride? And he certainly has. And boy, they really need him. But in the top of the second, the Cubs score 4 runs. Amaya with a 2-run homer. Of all people, I wasn't expecting much offense out of him, but he comes through for the Cubs, puts them up 4-2. Cardinals pick up a run and make it 4-3. It's 4-3 until the eighth inning. The Cardinals score 2 runs late and steal this game. Helsley comes in the ninth and gets his 32nd save, and the Cardinals pull this one out. And yeah, I think pretty much stole this one from the Cubs late and win it 5-4. Assad was the starter for the Cubs, by the way, and Gibson started for the Cardinals.
Wow.
Any other thoughts or notes on that? That one must have stung a little bit.
That did. I was thinking, the Cubs are hot. They've swept. They came in with a 5-game winning streak, and this was something they hadn't had a 3-game winning streak since April. Now they have a 5-game winning streak, and they're getting hot. And at least a split in that series would have been that doubleheader would have been good. Yeah, but losing both of those stung. But that Sunday game where Taillon goes against Michaelis the next day, that one, and Taillon, he wasn't at his best, but he pitched well. He gets his 7th win, and well, it was just I believe that was just like we were speaking earlier. Michaelis was pitching batting practice. He thought it was the All-Star game, and he was pitching to his.
Yeah, he was warming up for the home run derby. Yeah. The Cards were actually up 2-0 in this game.
Early, first inning.
Cubs scored the next 6. Yeah, and Michaelis served up a total of 4 home runs. And then they bring in Kittredge, and he gives up 2 more. So Cubs hit 6 homers in this game. It was it was bad.
But what was interesting to me was that Armstrong is Pete Crow Armstrong, PCA as they call it.
Yeah.
He's not a home run hitter, and he sometimes he tries to be, but he shouldn't be. But they throw him a ball like a breaking ball low, and he golfs it up, and the first one goes into right field.
It was about 6 inches off the ground when he hit it.
And it just, but and then you give him some fastballs or something. But no, the next time Michaelis pitches another one,
same
the same spot, and I don't know how he hit that one over the center field wall, but he did. But the thing about Armstrong, I think, is
he's got a quick bat, so he's going to have a little bit of pop.
Yeah, but
yeah, he's not going to be a 30 home run guy.
He's so fast. I think they said Bobby Witt of Kansas City is the fastest, and then he is. They said number 2. He's so fast that he needs to be hitting line drives or putting the ball in play, and he's going to beat out 10, 12, 15% of the balls that other people are going to be out on.
Well, he's going to beat out balls, and when he's on base, he's going to be a distraction to the other team, which is going to work in favor of the Cubs' other hitters.
Right. It just, him on first base is as good as a double or maybe even a triple.
Yes.
So I think he's got to just realize, just get on base, get your on base percentage up. Don't be trying for home runs. This 2 home run game was probably the worst thing that happened to him because he's probably thinking, "Look at me." He's a little guy. I mean, he's not a little guy, but he's not this big, powerful guy. He's a great fielder. One thing about his fielding that I've noticed, he gets so excited when he throws the ball to home plate. It always sails over the catcher's head or the third baseman's head when he's trying to throw somebody out. He's got to realize
he's a high adrenaline player.
You have to hit a cutoff, man. You have to do something. You can't do it all yourself.
He's got a good arm, though.
He has a good arm, but it's just almost like he just fires the ball and it goes over everybody's head because he's so excited. I've got to throw this guy out. He's got to settle down a little bit, and he will. He's going to be a really good player. And with Bellinger out, the only good thing about it, the Cubs are going to miss his bat. Bellinger's bat, but.
Well, this is going to give Armstrong a chance to play every day in center field and settle down, and let's see what he can do. Yeah, and I'm with you. He's a good player, and he's the kind of player you love to watch play the game.
With the Cubs coming into that series with the Cardinals, there were 3 behind the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are in the wild card spot. And I'm thinking if they sweep them, the Cubs are now over that. But I figured 3 out of 4, get them a game behind, get them a little closer. But
they end up splitting to 4 games. Yeah.
Just like our show, it was 2-2. It was 2 games to 2 games. So
yeah, The only good thing I could say about this game for the Cardinals was Burleson hit a home run in the sixth inning. That's his 17th home run. So he's really turning into the hitter that they hoped he could be. He was a batting champion from AAA, a guy who had a real high barrel rate, but actually a low average last year. But they looked at his stats and they said this guy should have had, this guy should have been hitting about 290. He should have had about a 800 ops. Instead, he batted about 220, 230 with 600 something OPS. But this year it's coming through, and he didn't get off to a great start, but he stuck with it, and here he is sitting there with 17 home runs. He's batting around 270, I believe, and his OPS is up in the upper 700. So he's really turned into probably the most consistent, reliable hitter that they have, and really the key to their run production.
I'm surprised. I didn't know he was. I didn't know he would be that good.
Really, I watched him last year, and I was kind of the same opinion as the analysis. I said this guy's a good hitter. He doesn't strike out much. He barrels the ball. He just kept hitting line drives right to people. And what I said when I saw him, I said this guy reminds me of Alan Craig. When Alan Craig for
Yeah.
about 3 years was as good a productive hitter as there was in the game. He was batting nearly 300. He'd hit 20 home runs. He was clutch. And I said, this guy, I had hopes that this guy could kind of be that type of player, and he is, and actually demonstrating a little bit more power with 17 home runs already here halfway through the year, or a little more than halfway through the year. So but anyway, yeah. So there, that takes both the teams to the break. The Cardinals are 50 and 46, sitting in second place. The Cubs are so Cardinals are 4 games over 500. The Cubs are 4 games under 500 at 47 and 51. So the Cubs are kind of they're just towing that line, right? What are they going to do at the trade deadline? Are they in or are they out? It's really you can make a case either way.
You know that here at the All Star break. And by the way, it's kind of strange at the All Star break that we're already just about 100 games into the season. So there's
Yeah.
only
Well, it's always more than half. They always say, "Oh, you're at the halfway point." It's
yeah,
it's always about 10 games more than halfway.
yeah, but now we're close to 100. So there's only about 60 plus games to
Yeah.
go. But the Cubs have the exact same record as they had last year
Oh,
at
really?
this time. And then they went on a tear,
Yeah. And I was going to say, and largely the same team.
largely the same team, and they're getting guys back. Let me just go over really quickly the Cubs transactions over the last few days. Pitcher Colton Brewer goes on with a hand fracture July 7th. Ethan Roberts comes as Ethan. He's optioned to the minor leagues. Mark Leiter comes back on the 9th. Julian Merriweather goes on a rehab assignment, so he's going to come back. That's good. Leiter's back. Bellinger goes off. Caleb Killian is on he might be coming back soon. Valencia's back. They recall and return Ethan Roberts the same day. I think that was the day of the doubleheader. All these things, but Luke Little, who's been doing well, he's on the injured list now. He's got a left shoulder strain. But Mike Talkman looks like he's going to be coming back soon.
He was a productive player for them. Yeah, they need him back.
So some of these guys that are injured are going to be coming back, and I would guess that after a couple of weeks, you might see Bellinger come back. So with these guys coming back, I think you have a little bit of hope there. But I'm sure we'll talk about it in the next couple of weeks. But the trade deadline is coming up. There's some big decisions.
So do the Cubs go out and try to get somebody, or do they not sell but just stand pat and try to maybe grab that third wild card with what they have?
Well, they just played the Angels, and I think the Angels are going to trade. Everybody on that Angels roster is about ready to go. So
That is just not a
that
good
might be
team.
something to. Yeah, and you got to look at Florida and Oakland and a couple of those teams, and some of those teams have some good. Oakland has a really good reliever, and so does Florida, and that would be the way to go. I think the Cubs had some good hitters in the minor leagues. They brought up that Canario. I wish they'd give him more of a chance.
Yeah, yeah. He looked like he had some power.
Yeah, I think they will with Bellinger out, but he needs to play day to day too. But
Uh-huh.
what he do. Suzuki and Happ are hitting well, and Armstrong's doing well. So
I think the Cardinals are definitely in the playoff hunt. They need at least one starting pitcher. They've got to bolster that rotation. Uh,
yeah,
you know, don't count on Steven Matz coming back, and even if he does, don't count on him really making any difference. And I think Lance Lynn and Miles Michaelis have been wildly inconsistent the last several weeks, and they're really vulnerable. Sonny Gray has been good, not great. They need
yeah.
another top. They need another number one, number two starter, and they really could use two more starters. I think.
He was great to begin with, but he
Yeah,
seems to slow down a little bit.
yeah, and he's still doing well, but he's not shutting down, holding teams to one run. They're scoring some runs off, but he's not the problem. Put it that way. But they
No,
got some moves, and they talking about they want to get a right-handed bat. And the issue there is Jordan Walker didn't pan out. So he's still down in AAA, not hitting home runs, not hitting high average, not hitting for high OPS. So I don't think they're close to bringing him up. And even if they did, I would not expect him to be a difference maker. So they're missing that right handed bat because if you look at them, they're sitting there with an outfield of Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar in center, or Ciani in center, and Alec Burleson in right. It's an entirely left-handed batting outfield. You can kind of stack up the lefties on them and give the Cardinals fits. I think
if
that's a big vulnerability that they have.
if the team has a good lefty, yeah.
If the team
But
has good lefties, because then you got Nolan Gorman, on the infield batting left-handed as well. So you end up with four left-handed bats there, sometimes a fifth if for the DH, and yeah, they can have some struggles against left-handed pitching. But anyway, you mentioned all the transactions that the Cubs made, and that reminds me, we wanted to do a little segment that I like to call the ones that got away, Davis. Are you,
uh,
Dave? Are you a fisherman? Do you fish a lot, Dave?
no, I wish I did.
Pussy. If you fish a lot, you always have stories about the ones that got away. Well, we were going to
Yeah,
talk about what are the five worst trades that the Cubs and the Cardinals have made in modern history, right? I guess you'd say in our lifetime. Some of these
I
may have been early in our lifetime, but they're notable nonetheless. Do you want to start off with a bad Cub trade?
yes, yes, yes. Well, Tommy, you can't talk about bad trades without talking about the Brock and Broglio trade.
Yeah.
1964, and the background of this one, they had a Cubs Day at Weebolt's department store on State Street in Chicago on June 15th of 1964, and it was a Monday, and it was a day off, and a bunch of people were there. Weebolt's was a big department store like Marshall Fields, Carson, Drury
Mm,
Scott, Goldblatt's.
Goldblatt's.
It was emceed by the Cubs, couple of Cubs baseball announcers, Jack Quinlan and Lou Boudreau. And there was an announcement during that Cubs Day, and the broadcaster Jack Quinlan said that there was a trade made, and the Cubs had traded Lou Brock. The fans booed. Oh no, we get rid of Brock? But the fans then cheered when they got the news that they got Broglio.
Well, because Broglio had won 18 games.
He won 18 games in the year before, 1963. I think he was at one point might have been a 20 game winner. I don't know about his whole career, but
I think the Cardinals had a little inside information that something maybe wasn't quite right with his arm.
yeah, that had to be the worst trade there. What happened was it was uh, Brock for Broglio, and a few other people were thrown in. It was just too much. I think when you're somebody like Ernie Broglio, and you're known, hey, you were the guy who traded for Brock, and you didn't do so well. That can't be easy either. I think that has to be the worst one I can think of.
Well, and what was so bad about it was that Brock then just played forever for the Cardinals, right? And
Yeah.
became a Hall of Famer, but he played until through the 1979 season. So they had to endure 15 years of that one getting rubbed in their face.
Oh, yeah, and he got his 3,000th hit against the Cubs.
against Dennis Lamp, literally off of Dennis Lamp. Remember, he hit it and it bounced off of him.
3,023 hits, 938 stolen bases, which was the record at the time before Ricky
Right.
Henderson stole them. The guy was just, and think about that outfield with him and Billy Williams in there. Um,
Yeah, could have made a slight difference.
that might have put him over the top in '69 when they ended up losing it to the Mets.
Yeah.
But after, can you imagine Brock, Williams, Banks, Santo, Beckert, Kessinger, Hundley, Fergie Jenkins leading, the team. It just that I don't know, that might have put him over the top that year. But anyway, I'd have to say that would be the worst trade.
Well, I would say when I look at the Cardinals, the worst trade in Cardinal history to me is the Steve Carlton trade. After the 1971 season, the Cardinals trade Steve Carlton away to the Phillies for another pitcher named Rick Wise. Now, Rick Wise was not a bad pitcher,
Right.
but he didn't have the kind of stuff that a big left-hander Steve Carlton had. Right, this guy was already a proven strong pitcher who, was only going to get better, and who has a lefty, that can throw that hard and has that devastating of a curveball. They got into a little bit of a salary squabble. I think he was trying to get about a $10,000 raise, and Gussie Busch just wasn't going to have it. The story goes, Davis, that Carlton had been up there trying to negotiate the salary he wanted, and they said, "Look, here, this is the offer, take it or leave it." And he walked out of the room, and the legend is he got to the ground floor and then said, "You know what? I'm tired of arguing about this. I'm going to go back up there and sign that contract." And by the time he got back up there, they had traded him
Hmm.
over a few dollars, pennies in today's salary world. And what did
Yeah.
he do? The next year, Steve Carlton won 27 games for the Philadelphia Phillies, who only won, I believe, 53 the entire year. Now,
Yeah.
this trade, and there's going to be a couple more that I'm going to talk about, but this trade effectively kept the Cardinals out of the playoffs for the entire decade of the 70s. Lest we forget, the Cardinals finished, I believe, a game and a half behind the Mets in 73. You don't think Steve Carlton being on that starting staff would have made a game and a half difference for that team?
Yeah.
I believe there was another year where the Cardinals finished maybe 2 games out and took second place to the Pirates. Again, having Steve Carlton on that team probably wins you that division. Yeah, not a very wise move. Pardon the pun. I think Rick Wise had 1 or 2 years where he won, double digits, but was not never going to be the kind of dominant pitcher that Carlton was. How about another bad Cub trade?
Well, I'd have to say, let's go back to the Cubs Cardinals.
Hmm.
I think that trade where the Cubs traded Bruce Sutter to the Cardinals.
They traded a World Series to the
They
Cardinals.
traded a World Series to the Cardinals, and Sutter was the best in baseball, the best reliever I ever saw pitch,
Yep.
and he came up with that split finger fastball, and it was just it rolled off. Nobody could hit it, and it's rare when you have a pitcher that has a unique pitch that no one can hit, and he did so well. And
For the younger fans, and maybe not even that young, but he was the equivalent of Mariano Rivera.
yeah,
It's a
he
totally
just
different
was
pitching style, but when he came into the game, it was over.
right. And Mariano Rivera, like a Dennis Eckersley, the game was over pretty much. We'll get to Dennis Eckersley in a minute here, but it was just they got Leon Durham, who was a good prospect, and had some decent seasons with the Cubs. But you have to get more, and the Cubs got another minor league prospect. Durham was already proven; he had played in the majors a little bit, but they got Ty Waller,
Hmm.
who never really panned out.
Right.
He was another good prospect. Word has it that they possibly were going to get Tommy Herr, as we spoke about, but they ended up with Ty Waller. So we spoke about this trade, but that was just a bad one. Then they got Ken Reitz in the deal. I think they had to just say, all right, we'll take Ken Reitz contract. Just a bad deal. You have to get you say, all right, this is what you want to give us. Let's start there, and then maybe two or three other players, and Tommy Herr, and a couple, and a pitcher, a prospect or something. But the Cubs settled on that, and they settled, and it was just a bad deal.
Yeah, yeah,
We
not a good
spoke
deal.
about it earlier with our guests, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and as I just said, I mean, Suter was the key to the Cardinals winning the World Series in 1982. They would have never been anywhere
yeah,
near that without him. Let me tell you about a couple more bad Cardinal trades. We're going to go back to the early and mid 70s again, Davis. The Cardinals in 1971 had a slugger by the name of Dick Allen. Guy hit 34 home runs in Old Busch Stadium. I don't think anyone else ever hit 30 in that stadium. On top of that,
wow,
he bats 300. He's going to drive in 100 runs for you. But
right,
hey, this guy, we got to get rid of this guy. And
yeah,
so, I guess if you're going to, you don't like him, you're going to trade him. You're going to get something good for him, right? Well, who'd they get for him? They traded him to the Dodgers for Ted Sizemore, straight up. So you trade a guy who can hit 34 home runs in Old Busch Stadium, 100 RBIs, for a little second baseman who's maybe going to hit one or two, and is going to bat about 240 for you. And you
oh,
trade him
that's
straight up for Dick Allen. That was after the 1971 season. And let me give you another. The Cardinals were just hell bent on not making the playoffs in the 70s. So then a couple of years later, they've got another slugging outfielder. His name's Reggie Smith. Reggie
oh
Smith
yeah,
played for the Cardinals for 2 years, batted 290, 300, hit 20 home runs. He was a five-tool player. Now, he
yeah,
was not a superstar, but he would hit for average, he'd hit for power, he could run, he could steal you 15 bases. He was a good outfielder with the glove, not a gold glove, but a very good outfielder, and he had a good arm.
yeah.
This guy, what more do you want in a player? And again, I guess if you're going to trade him, well, at least you're going to get something for him, right? So they go back to they got such a good deal from the Dodgers when they got Ted Sizemore for Dick Allen. They trade Reggie Smith to the Dodgers for Joe Ferguson, a backup catcher.
Oh boy,
Now, this deal was bad enough just at face value. Uh, and if you're the Cardinals, you got Ted Simmons as your catcher. Why are you going to trade Reggie Smith for another catcher? Anyway, two more horrendous trades for the Cardinals. One at the end of the 71 season and one at the end of the 75 season. Stack that up with the Carlton trade. It's pretty easy to see why the Cardinals never got in the playoffs in the 70s.
I've got one for you. Actually, I've got two for you.
Okay.
Since we talked about Bruce Sutter, we talked about some of the relievers they gave up, uh, Hall of Fame relievers. How about the Cubs in 1987, the winter after the 87 season, gave up Lee Smith to Boston
Mm,
for Calvin Schiraldi and Al Nipper. Al Nipper was, both of them were starters. Schiraldi had some time as a reliever as well. Supposedly the Dodgers had offered Bob Welch straight up for Smith,
ooh, Bob Welch was
and
not bad.
yeah, and that would have been a better deal.
A little
Uh,
better. Calvin Schiraldi, he of the famous wild pitch in the 1986 World Series.
and another rumor at the time was the Braves offer from was Jeff Blauser, and he was good at the time,
He's a shortstop, right?
and yeah, and a kid pitcher that they had at the time, John Smoltz.
You don't want him.
No, but the Cubs settled again for a top reliever. Now he did have a lot of blown saves in '87. The Cubs had a tough year, and he had a lot
Yeah,
of blown saves. But at the same time, he still had 36 saves.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
So, and they're just running them down. So they get Calvin Schiraldi and Al Nipper, and of course they don't do.
for Lee Smith.
And while we're on the subject, if you don't mind, if you're on the subject of relievers that the Cubs gave up, um, how about when they traded before the '87 season started, the year before, the year before they played in '87, they had Lee Smith. So they give up Dennis Eckersley they traded Dennis Eckersley. Now, when they acquired Dennis Eckersley in 1984 for Bill Buckner
Yeah.
from Boston,
And
and he was a starter. And to the
yeah.
Cubs' credit, I think the Cubs wanted to say, "Hey, you know what? We could use you as a reliever," and he didn't want to do it.
Mm.
So the Cubs traded him. They get Brian Gwynn, Mark Leonetti, and David Wilder. None of them panned out and did anything.
And they sent him where?
To Oakland.
Oakland. He went right to
Oh,
Oakland then.
Dennis Eckersley goes right to Oakland. They
And became a reliever for Oakland.
became a reliever because he finally was convinced by Tony La Russa. Hey, listen, I want you to be my reliever. The Cubs tried to convince him, and he said no. But he wasn't doing well, and the Cubs were, faltering. '84 was such a good year,
Yeah.
and then they just faltered after that, and all the guys were getting hurt and everything, and they just said, well, if you're not going to be a reliever, then we're getting rid of you. And they got three guys for him that didn't do anything, and Dennis Eckersley becomes a Hall of Famer because of
Right.
his career as a
Because of
reliever.
his
So,
great relieving career. Yeah.
so Bruce Suter, Lee Smith, and Dennis Eckersley, three guys traded by the Cubs and had success, but went on to the Hall of Fame, and the Cubs got virtually nothing for that, any of them.
Okay. Well, let me give you two more bad Cardinal trades, and I'll be done with that. And
Okay.
unfortunately, these are a lot more recent, and they're still stinging. After the 2019 season, the Cardinals traded a young outfielder named Randy Arozarena for a pitching prospect named Matthew Liberatore. So this was a deal between the Cardinals and the Tampa
Yeah.
Bay Rays. And so, of course, Randy Arozarena goes on in 2021. He's postseason MVP, hero, hit the most home runs in the history of postseason. Now, albeit in a few more games than they used to play in the past, but still, he had a remarkable performance. He carried that into the following couple of seasons and has really been a bona fide player and really one of the backbone uh, pieces of the Tampa Bay Rays and their recent success over the last several years. Now, interestingly, this year he has struggled quite a bit. His average is like barely 200, I think, although he's still got a dozen homers or so. But Matthew Liberatore has never become the pitcher that the Cardinals had hoped he would be. He's a big left-hander. He's had a few moments, particularly out of the bullpen, where he's looked effective, but the consistency's just not been there as a starter. And another one that the Cardinals did, it was actually, I think, in the same off season, they needed a power hitter, and they traded two pitching prospects from their minor leagues. One's name was Zach Gallen, and the other was Sandy Alcantara. So not only did they get rid of one good pitcher, they bundled two good pitchers and traded him for Marcell Ozuna. Now Ozuna
Mm.
played 2 seasons for the Cardinals, and he was decent, but
I don't think it ended so well, did it?
no, and his defense just fell off the cliff during the time that he was in St. Louis. And there was the famous play where he went back. Somebody who was hitting what he thought was a home run, and he thought he was going to climb the wall and catch it. He climbs the wall and turns back, and the ball falls, on the warning track about 10 feet short. One of the dumbest looking plays you'll ever see by a defender. And
Yeah, that was a good one.
and now, of
I
course,
like
he's
that one.
you yeah, you must have liked that one. But so they let him go. They didn't re-sign him after I think it was the 2020 season. He's on the Braves now, of course, hitting home runs left and right. He's only a DH, and he's a nice complement to the rest of that lineup. Really makes things go for them. But Sandy Alcantara wins a Cy Young award, and Zach Gallen is a top of the rotation, starter now for the Diamondbacks. Alcantara has had Tommy John surgery, I believe, so he hasn't pitched in about a year and a half, but he's expected to come back, and I think the Cardinals would like to have him on their roster, but they don't. So those are my five worst trades in my lifetime that I can remember from the Cardinals.
Well, I have one more. I want to throw this one in. 1977,
Okay.
February, before the '77 season. And remember, the Cubs started making a little run in '77, '78. They weren't
Yeah,
very
they
good, but they started making a little
they
run. But
played over their
they had
heads
they
well
had Bruce
into the
Suter.
summer. Yeah.
But before that year in '77, they traded Bill Madlock uh,
Oh
to the
yeah.
Giants for Bobby Mercer, who was over the hill.
But no, Bobby Mercer, he was the next Mickey Mantle, right?
What the Yankee then the Yankees said, yeah, we're trading the next Mickey Mantle to San Francisco, and of course San Francisco said, hey, do you want the next Mickey Mantle? The Cubs said, yeah, we'll give you a two-time batting champion for him.
Who plays decent defense and can steal some bases.
SteveOniveris came in and played third base. They got SteveOniveris to play on that same deal, and a guy, pitcher named Andy Mulestock. But they had SteveOniveris play third base,
I remember
and
Anaveris.
Oniveris actually hit 300 one year, I believe.
Did he?
But he did, and yeah, he was not. Let's just say he wasn't the best looking baseball player. He. I think he and maybe John Candelaria would be in a contest for,
Mike Lacoste.
yeah, and Kent Tucolvi maybe, but anyway, that's but
That's a discussion for another day.
that's Elizabeth, but possibly. I'm not saying that for sure, but Bill Madlock, I love the guy. He his average as a Cub. He had 1,500 at bats or so, 1,481 at bats as a Cub. His batting average as a Cub up to that point was 336.
Yeah, you got to get rid of that guy.
Yeah, two batting titles. He just won a batting title, and I think he won it $100,000 a year. And Wrigley said, "I'm not paying you $100,000 a year."
Yeah,
And
him and Steve Carlton. You're not worth that.
yeah, right. But it was just, and I couldn't believe they got rid of him. And that same year, by the way, they traded Rick Monday, who had it. I think he had like 32 home runs that year before, also. And they got Bill Buckner. That was a good deal. But
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they made some big moves. They got rid of Monday, and they got rid of Madlock, and they got but they didn't get anything for Madlock, and that was just, to
Wow.
me, that was a bad deal. And Madlock went on to win I think
He
a
won two.
championship
He
with
won two more batting titles. He won a World
two
Series
more
with the
batting
Pirates.
titles and a World Series, so good for him. But I think he played for maybe like five teams or something, five or six teams. But
Yeah, he's a good player.
he was really good. I really liked him at third base, and he was from Decatur, Illinois. And I remember the
I think
commercials he
didn't he
had
play
on.
second base for the Cubs when he first came up?
All I remember him is at third base, but
Okay.
anyway, it was just sad to see it. I remember his commercials on the Champagne Channel because he was from Decatur. He would do a
Okay.
commercial. This is Bill Madlock for Kelly Potato Chip. For Kelly Potato Chips,
Is
and
that they were made in Decatur, weren't they?
I
Kelly's
believe they
potato
were.
chips.
So yeah, I believe they were. So anyway, I'm sure there's more, and they go back further, but those were the ones that stick to me in my time. There was always the Palmero trade, but with Jamie Moyer. But you know what, Palmero.
They had that, and what about Joe Carter? Didn't they trade Joe Carter away?
They traded Joe Carter, but they got Rick Sutcliffe for him, and he
Oh, okay. They got
propelled him.
something for him.
So yeah, I mean, in the long run, it probably was obviously was a better deal for. It was Cleveland. They traded him to, but he didn't do anything for Cleveland. He won them for I believe Toronto. I believe,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
he was a star on Toronto. Well, Sutcliffe was to the '84 Cubs what Suter was to the '82 Cardinals. He was the linchpin.
I mean, how do you argue that deal? You
Yeah,
know
okay. I didn't realize they
that
got
that was the same. That was the same year the Cubs made some late moves, and they got Dernier late, and I think
Bobby
and
Dernier.
Gary
I
Matthews,
liked
and they
that
got
guy. I liked watching him play.
they traded Buckner for Dennis Eckersley to Boston. All these were like late moves. They weren't over the. They were all, either in spring training or the season had started, and they just kind of they just rebuilt that team while spring training and the beginning of the season.
How did the Cubs get Ron Say? Did they sign him as a free agent or did they trade for him?
He just came over and begged them, "Can I come over?
Can I play for you?
Can I play for you?" I'm not really sure. I think he was a free. I think it was a free agent.
He was really good for them in '84, but he just fell off the cliff after that. I remember how mad you were in '85 when the Cubs were struggling. You kept going, "They got to get rid of Say. They got to get rid of Say."
Yeah, I remember they were always saying Cubs won't say about say. You know, that was always the head. That was always the headline. Like, what are we going to do
Oh,
with
how
this guy?
clever! Yeah, yeah. How do we
What are
get
we
rid
going
of
to do
him
with this
now?
guy? How do we get rid of him? It was, yeah,
Well, one more topic we talk about real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. But I did, this was the week of the Major League Draft, and I don't want to get. I'm not a big draft guy. I don't get into it too much, especially for baseball. It's so hard to, look into the future and see if a prospect is really going to pan out. But I just want to mention the Cardinals had the seventh pick. This is the highest pick they've had in like 20 years.
yeah.
And they got an infielder named J.J. Weatherholt, who is highly touted. He's a 21-year-old left-handed bat, right-handed arm, touted as possibly the best pure hitter from the draft class. Not the most powerful, but maybe a guy who hits a line drive hitter who can go to all fields. Good speed, likely a second baseman, I think, in the Cardinal organization. Of course, especially since they've got Mason Wynn at shortstop, and he's had some hamstring issues apparently that slowed him down this year.
Yeah, I saw that. They said he was a really good pure hitter, and I was going to ask you that. What position does he fit into? But you
Yeah,
think
he
second base, and what happens to Nolan Gorman?
Yeah, he wanted to play shortstop this year, and he had some hamstring problems. And they mentioned recurring hamstring problems, which makes you a little bit worried. But I think they should be able to take care of that. Yeah, I think he's not going to go beat out Mason Wynn. I don't think. Nolan Gorman. You bring up that name. I'm more and more thinking they Cardinals might trade him. He might be a piece that they need to trade to get a pitcher, and you know he's batting about 200, strikes out 50% of the time. So
Yeah,
streaky. I mean, he'll go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and hit one home run. Then he'll go a week and he'll hit seven home runs. And it's just, but the gaps between the performance are so long. They're so wide, and he's not a Gold Glove second baseman, right? I mean, I don't know. But anyway, that's more trade talk
is
for
there a
another
better
day.
position for him then?
Nolan Gorman was a third baseman as he came up through the minors, but since Cardinals had Arenado, Jordan Walker was also a third baseman, and they turned
Yeah,
him into a bad outfielder, and they've turned Nolan Gorman into an average at best second baseman for the sake of Arenado,
maybe they
which
move Gorman over to third when Arenado goes, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
maybe trade Walker.
Arenado's there through next year. They've started to mention Walker's name as a potential trade. Now, of course, as soon as they trade him, he'll be the next Randy Arozarena or you know
Yeah.
Adolis Garcia.
Oh God.
That's the thing. The Cardinals are afraid to trade an outfielder because they know the moment they trade him, the guy's gonna go ballistic and hit 35 home runs. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Just a quick note about that. I wanted to say, who the Cubs Cardinals didn't even have a second round pick because they had forfeited it for the Sonny Gray free agent signing. And the Cubs, what did they do with their first pick?
Your Cardinals picked seventh, and the Cubs picked 14th, and they took this infielder. He looks like he's slotted for third base out of Florida State. This guy named Cam Smith, and another good hitter,
Okay,
strong arm. I think he could develop into power, but the Cubs have been going lately, and I think it might be a trend more so for high draft picks, college players lately for most teams, but. You have this high draft pick. You want to see somebody that might be coming up soon or is more developed that you can use in a trade. But
yeah, yeah,
Cubs that definitely need some help at third. And this guy hopefully has got a quick ascension. Um, they took another infielder in the second round, a guy named Cole Mathis out of the College of I think the College of Charleston, and another one of those guys who is he's a two-way guy. He's a pitcher and hitter, but they think of him more as a hitter and an infielder. So we'll see how that goes.
okay.
But we'll see how these guys pan out. We'll see
Yep.
what the rankings are.
Well, one other note about the draft: the White Sox, with the 140th pick overall, took a player named Sam Antonacci from Springfield, Illinois. Davis,
wow, what was the pick?
140th pick overall.
My
So
goodness.
yeah, and if you recall, we went to high school, that same school system from with a couple of Antonaccis. He's got to be the son of one of the guys that we went to school with. I was trying to trace him back to find out who it was, but I didn't. But I'm assuming it is. He went to the same high school that we did. He's from Springfield. So congratulations to that young man, Sam
Yes.
Antonacci. He was a former All-State player for Sacred Heart Griffin. He was at Coastal Carolina, Davis. He batted .367 with 6 home runs and 47 RBIs. So
Well, good. Good luck to him,
pretty
and
pretty good player. Yep.
good, good.
So anyway, with that, I think Davis, we'll wrap it up for the week. I think a lot of baseball covers that we've caught the folks up on. We're going to take the week off next week for All Stars, since there's not so many games for us to cover, and we'll be back at you about 2 weeks from now.
We'll see you when we see you.
Yeah,
That's what my barber said. I said, "Boy, I wait too long to get my hair cut," and she said, "You say that every time." And I said, "Oh, I guess I do." And she just said, "I'll just see you when I see you." So, folks, we'll see you when we see you.
we'll see you when we see you, and you might not even be that happy about that.
You'll hear us when you'll hear us, I suppose, is what we should say.
All right, Davis. Well, always a pleasure talking baseball with you, and talking baseball hell to the people. And so we'll see you next time, folks. Say good night, Davis.
Good night, Davis. And I want to say a special good night to one of my favorite listeners, Katie B. Katie, ta ta for now.